Transplant Bill 2009.
Okay. Okay, I call the Honourable Michael Bovell.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Michael Bovell. I move to introduce a bill, the Human Tissue and Organ Transplant Bill 2009, and that it be read a first time.
The question is that the... Sorry, I'm just going to go my notes and stuff here. What's the bill? What's the bill's name? Okay, Human Tissue and an Organ Transplant Bill 2009 and be read for a first time. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
An act to make provision for universal presumed consent in relation to the removal of human tissues for transplantation, other therapeutic, medical, scientific and related purposes. First reading.
Okay. I call upon the Honourable Michael Bovell. Second reading.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Michael Bovell. I move to introduce a bill, Human Tissue and Organ Transplant Bill 2009, and that it be read a second time.
Give your speech.
Do your speech.
Organ transplantation is the best available treatment for people suffering in the final stages of organ failure. Transplant recipients show significant improvement in the quality of their lives after receiving organ donation. There are about 120 people on organ transplant waiting lists in Western Australia, but only about 60 receive successful transplants each year, while 6 are likely to die before receiving a transplant. The problem is not a lack of suitable donors. Identifying donors, achieving consent from next of kin, and the successful and efficient harvest of organs are deficient. The cost of health is reduced by increased use of organ transplants. Dialysis over a period of 12 months costs over $50,000 compared to $15,000 for kidney transplant operation costs and $20,000 in ongoing costs per annum. If the 1,500 people who are on kidney operating lists received a donation this year, $22.5 million would be saved this year, with $45 million being saved each year ongoing. There are also a large benefit to the quality of life, with each individual being able to contribute greater to society. This is an unquantifiable amount. In the year 2000, the National Donor Registry was created, combined with education campaigns. Since this was formed, there has been no increase in the number of deceased donating organs. Although there are 650,000 people registering in Western Australia, only 13 people per million were donors in 2008. Even if the deceased has an official consent registered, the family are able to override the deceased's wishes. Under universal presumed consent, organs may be removed from the deceased persons for transplant if they have not registered a dissent to donating their organs. The onus is placed on those who do not wish to donate. If no intent is registered, the deceased is seen to permit the donation of organs, and this arrangement cannot be revoked by any third party. For every organ donation, someone has died, and in most situations, in tragic and sudden circumstances. This bill creates measures to minimise family distress by means of close counselling by the transplant coordinator and on an ongoing basis by clinical staff and psychologists. The Western Australian Organ Donation Authority would be created to oversee all aspects of organ donation. The authority is a foundation for all donation activity to record all intents. The authority would be responsible to design and implement public relations to ensure a highest acceptance and education is available and the public is aware of the right to choose. Universal presumed organ donation, along with the authority's coordination, training and public education programs, will result in higher organ donation rates, while respecting individual choice not to donate human tissue and minimising the community impact. Thank you, Mr. President.
Question is, the bill will be now read a second time. I call the refuter. I call the Honourable Gemma Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Gemma Lee. The Human Tissue and Organ Transplant Bill is one that is needed to help those in need of organ donation. But It is attempting to force people to donate their organs, and this may be against their religious wishes. The bill also doesn't refer to the length of time an organ can survive before the need to transplant it into another body. Another point is that the bill does not allow for the deceased to dissent in their own wills. The mandatory review outlined in the bill does not allow for the changing of technology, as it is only seen to be done for every 10 years. A shorter time is needed to keep the bill efficient and effective. Also, this bill violates civil liberties as it removes a person's right to choose. The bill does not outline what will occur when the demand for organs is lower than mandatory extraction of the deceased organs.
Shame.
There is also no outline system where people can choose to donate certain organs, and not others, only the system where people can dissent. There is also no mention of testing of donors that may be inappropriate. The Health Tissue and Organ Transplant Bill is a necessity, but in its current form it would be unable to meet the requirement of organ donation and the needs of the people that need the organs.
Yeah.
Thank you, member. The question is the bill be now read a second time. I call Honourable Luke Ellery.
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Luke Ellery. Right from the beginning, this bill has some major flaws. If we were to dissect even the title, we already find some. An act to make provisional for universal presumed consent. You cannot presume when it comes to someone's organs. It is wrong. Do you think the Parliament can presume that a child sex offender can just presume that his hormones are an excuse for molesting a child? Presumptions are wrong. You cannot presume. It is wrong. For another, why do you not provide an incentive for those to donate rather than force it upon them? Or it comes at the discretion of those who have not found the time to register for the bill. For one thing, if everyone who died and did not register had their organs, it is obvious there would be excess organs. How do you discriminate? How do you propose to discriminate against whose organs are taken and whose aren't? It doesn't work. Also, the bill does not provide any choice on the use of that organs. If we look further on, for the removal of tissues for transplantation of a therapeutic, medical, scientific related purposes, for a person gets no choice in what their organs are used for. A person could have their heart mutilated by some scientist trying to study how it pumps blood. That is wrong. There is no clause in the bill that states that a person gets the choice of the use of their organ. They only have the choice. You haven't put a clause that states the use of it. You've only put a clause that states the choice of the organ used. For another thing, there is no respect for the dead in this. This bill, that is shame, I agree. This bill takes advantage of those who have not registered. It is also not fair for families not to be able to revoke dead people who have not registered. This bill is not fair. It does not acknowledge people's rights of choice, and it takes advantage of the people of Western Australia. Yeah, that's done.
Thank you, member. The question is the bill be now read a second time. Someone seeking the call? I call the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Lewis Richard Stout. I think we can all agree that there's a lack of organ donation in Western Australia, with half the people on the waiting list missing out. This is a significant number. What this bill does, this health bill, it makes an opt-out system which will increase the amount of organs. So there is no discretion on people's choice. If you have the choice, if you want your organs to be deleted, to be removed, you phone up and go to the authority and go, I want my organs removed. There is no, you're taking people's choice away. You still have the choice. Instead of an opt-in, it's an opt-out. Now, what this bill does, it respects the person's decision, even if it dissents from the families. Too often people have said that they want their organs donated. However, the families at the last moment have said, no, we don't want, and then it has to be changed. That poor person who's hoping his life depends on that organ has now had its dash and has to be forced through painful procedures just to keep alive until they find a new one. What this does is that it goes, the person chooses. Doesn't matter what the family says, unless the family has conclusive evidence that of the contrary, it does this. Now, the education and media programs which are going to be produced in the bill show the public about the organ donation program, the counselling, and what it will be given to the families who relatives donate organs. So we're not going to leave these families out to dry. If a person does donate his organs, that we're going to give them help, because it's not an easy thing to do to see your relative, your friends, have their organs taken up, so you can't use them, can't have it for the whole body, for the whole thing. Now, social benefits for the recipients is that the quality of life for them is going to improve, and so the families. This is a major factor of this bill. Goes, that person, 32 organs in the body can be used. As one person's death can make 32 other people survive. Goes, the benefits of that is extravagant. And now the economic benefits is decrease in health costs, there's less pressure on the hospitals, there's the creation of new authority means new jobs. 22.5 million is saved from the first year. If all kidney donors list with 45 million afterwards, that's just kidney himself. What about heart? What about lung? It's the cost, but the savings you get from this is extravagant. And the main thing which, well, to conclude, Mr. President, about this, it will decrease expenditure of the government. That means less money on procedures such as dialysis, which are not enormous. They are massive costs for the government who have to pay for it, or the persons themselves. This removes them, and this is why this bill should be passed, as it is a fantastic bill.
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Member. Question is the bill be noted a second time. I call the Honourable Leader of the Government.
Thank you, Mr. President, the Honourable Dylan Capehorn. I'd like to first of all state that this bill promotes the violation of human bodies after they're dead, and I'm glad to see the opposition is supporting this. The bill itself gets rid of all civil liberties involved with dying. No, it does. By making people have their organs donated, and I like to note 32 organs violated and removed, is disgraceful, and the opposition should be shameful of themselves.
Thank you, Member. The question is the bill be narrowed a second time. I call... Can the member please withdraw his comment? Thank you. I call the Honourable Georgia O'Keefe.
Mr. President, the Honourable Georgia O'Keefe. We have not addressed the idea of a will in the legislation, as a will is read 7 days after their death, at which point the organs will already be useless, so there's not really a point in that. We, as the opposition, believe that at this stage many people have not gotten around to becoming an organ donor in the current opt-in system. With an opt-out system, people are immediately put on the list and can easily opt out at any point in time if they don't want to be a donor. It is more likely that people will be for donation than against, and if people really disagree, then they can opt out, and they're more likely to opt out in an opt-out system than opt-in in an opt-in system.
Thank you, Member. The question is bill be now read a second time. I call the Honourable Gemma-Lee. Have you already spoken?
Yeah.
Can't speak. Sorry. Someone else seeking the call? Call the Honourable Tammy-Ann Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Tammy-Ann Caldwell. You cannot force people to let their organs be ripped out and put into someone else's body. A person's body is their private property, and it is their choice what they do with it. This is a human being's right. Your body is the one thing that we all have 100% privacy rights and control over. For this reason, it is a terrible illegal act to force someone to have sex, or to sexually penetrate their body, or to torture someone if they're not punished. The same principle, the relevance is the same principle applies to human tissue and organ mandatory removal and transplant. It is against our rights. If you're taking them out as soon as they die, it is. It is against our rights as human beings, and I'm not even religious. If every person that dies, 150,000 a year in Australia, must have their organs removed, this will, 1, leave us with an huge excess of organs because there are just 1,700 people in Australia on waiting lists for transplants and organs must be used within 2 to 24 hours of being removed. And 2, it will therefore waste much time and money from our already overstretched and financially underfunded health system by removing organs which cannot be used. The state should not be given control over my body or your body. Instead, simply up the ante on the awareness campaigns and the need for donate so that then if we want to, we can choose to register. It's all about choice. The choice to say yes, not to have the government decide and we'd have to say no, I want to do with my body what I want to do with it. It's all about our rights as human beings.
Question is, the bill be now read a second time. I call upon the Honourable Mitchell Goff.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Mitchell Goff. I would like to put to the government their claim of us having no respect for the dead. Well, instead I would put to you, do you have any respect for those who are on these waiting lists to then go and say to them that, I'm sorry, there are no organs available for you?
The question is, the bill be now read a second time. So someone, I call upon the Honourable Elizabeth
Shannon.
Shannon, there we go.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Elizabeth Shannon. The Honourable Member for the South West has mentioned that that the bill is a violation of civil rights and that we have 100% right to our body. However, as has currently already been mentioned, many people actually do opt in for the organ donation, but their families step in after they're deceased and stop the removal of their organs. How is this not a violation of their civil rights if they have already mentioned they want to have their organ donated?
The question is, the bill be now read a second time. I call upon the Honourable Luke Kovac.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Luke Kovac. This bill in no way takes away the rights of people. You can still at any stage say no, you don't want your organs removed. Okay? It's just a plain and simple way of eliminating that factor that people have to take their own time out of their schedules to go and say they want their organs removed to give to these people. The people that would generally have to wait for people to do this because, well, they just don't want to or they don't have the time. But if somebody still wants to keep their organs, they still want after death to not have to help these people for whatever their reason is, they can still do that.
Thank you, Member. I call upon the Honourable Amy Leathersich. Am I close?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, the Honourable Amy Leathersich. Oh, sweet. What if I were to die like in a car crash or something tomorrow? Like, I wouldn't want, like I should say, a percentage of Australians wouldn't want their organs just being given up. And if it's a sudden death, like many deaths are, that are, but you know, like, okay, I'm like a 20 millionth of a percent or something of Australia that wouldn't want their organs just going straight to someone after I've died. Like, because it's mandatory, if there's no other, if I don't opt out of it, isn't it? If I don't opt out of it, but I die, and that's so. But it doesn't mean if I die and I don't, that it's not expected. Let's say I have a car crash or something, and I'm dead, and my organs go to this. I'm not aware that I'm going to die, and a lot of the deaths are sudden. But then if you're really against it, you should opt out. But I'm 16. If I have I don't expect to die. It can be very a lot of people don't I wouldn't write a will. A lot of people wouldn't write wills at my age because they don't expect to die. But you're in it, and then you can't.
Members, I remind you that the Honourable Member has the call. Should be heard in relative silence.
My point is that if it were to be a sudden death and you haven't opted out yet, even though you may feel passionately about it, your organs still are given away, and that's not what you want.
Question is, the bill now read a second time. Someone's seeking the call. I call upon the Honourable Sinead Newman.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Sinead Newman. A lot of people don't register for organ donations because they can't find the time, or they just can't be bothered, or maybe they don't have a strong opinion on it. So this allows people to opt out if they do feel passionate about the subject.
Thank you, member. I call the Honourable Joshua Renier. I'm going to attempt that one, so just go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Josh Blino. It was mentioned before by the Honourable Member George O'Keefe that there needs to be no clause about the will in the bill. This is as it is only produced 7 days after death. This is not the case, as it can be produced by other parties, such as the spouse of the deceased. They can produce the bill as soon as I find out that the person is dead. So there needs to be a clause about the will. It can be done.
Question is the bill be narrowed a second time. I call the Honourable Christine Hamilton Prime.
The Honourable Christine Hamilton Prime. I'd like to make the members aware opposite that Australia actually has the highest sign-up rate for organ donation, but the biggest opt-out by their families after they die. And I would also like to make the members opposite aware that what happens if you were in the situation that you were on the receiving end of an organ donation? If your brother, your sister, your mother or your father needed an organ transplant, but you were on this waiting list that seems forever, wouldn't you want people to sign up so your parents could get better? I would think so.
Question is the bill be narrowed a second time. I call the Honourable Ian Garlett.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Ian Garlett. I feel that this is a good meaning and sensible bill. For it not to go ahead, the deceased person's next of kin must have very good reasons to not have the organs donated. Therefore, they can't oppose it, say, because they're being spiteful, or they just don't want the organs taken out. Also, it can save more lives as to those who die from it, and therefore it is the main advantage. Also, it can save up to $45 million a year on healthcare. And just let me leave you with this thought. It is better to have a surplus of organs than a shortage.
Thank you, member. Question is the bill narrowed a second time. I call the Honourable Lauren Goodhart.
Thank you, Mr. President, the Honourable Lauren Goodhart. We're not saying that every single person that is going to die that's on this list, we're not going to take all their organs and just put them in a warehouse somewhere. We're not doing that. We're not going to just in case we need them. That's not what we're doing. If they're needed, if there's someone on a waiting list, why not give them to them? I mean, really, that's going to save lives. And also, a lot of people can't find the time to go and, if you want to opt in, you have to go, you have to register, it's quite a lengthy process. So a lot of people don't find time with uni or school or work so it's just as easy to opt out as it is to opt in.
Remember. Someone taking the call? Yes? No? I call the Honourable Sophie Burke.
Thanks, Mr. President. Honourable Sophie Burke. With the current policy, the people who give organs are the people that say yes. With the proposed policy, you're saying that you can still say no, so there's still really a choice. But what about the people that haven't thought about it before? Isn't that just
You're assuming you can take their organs.
The member has the call. Go ahead.
don't you think it's just a bit unfair that the people that haven't thought about it, you have to remove the organs pretty quickly. And you can't exactly ask someone who's already dead. Yeah. Obviously.
I call the Honourable Vlada.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Vlada Lemake. I'd like to start off by saying that 90% of people, according to a 2004 news poll, are for organ donation. The point of this bill is to make it easier for people to donate. It's not making donation mandatory. It is easy to opt out. You can make a system of a hotline or some form that you can easily call up, identify yourself, take yourself off the register. It's as simple as that. A couple of minutes, no more. At the moment, families can currently dissent against the deceased wishes. For instance, a hypothetical. Say the deceased was an avid organ donor supporter. She wanted to give their organs to enrich and perhaps even save someone's lives. Their siblings may have disagreed with those wishes and could legitimately restrict that from happening. This bill, in effect, gives rights back to the donor. The government here wants to take those rights away. The cost savings themselves, this year, if this bill were implemented this year, $22.5 million would be saved, and then $45 million a year after that. Honour for member opposite stated that we have a burden, the health system is underfunded, it's in a state of disarray. $45 million a year pumped straight back into it. Not just that, can you put a price on human life? This is saving people's lives. Exactly. And finally, the will issue. The will issue is impractical, okay? A will is executed. Member opposite said that it doesn't take that long. Will is executed, solicitor must do it 7 days after the death. Organs are useless then. It's impractical, it's pointless to put this clause in. Look, this organ donation is a must. It saves lives, saves money, and it is really win-win for everyone.
Member, the question is the bill being narrowed a second time. I call the Honourable Rachel Moles.
Thanks, Mr. President, the Honourable Rachel Moles. Some issues with the bill is the eligibility of organs. Not all organs that will be taken from people will be eligible to be transplanted. What are you going to do with these organs, and how do you test if they're eligible or not for transplantation? That takes time, and doctors and stuff that you got to take time. And the length of time that the organs last, because you have to transport these organs to different people in different places, different hospitals. It takes time. You have to have the right transport conditions, cold, and the extra organs, because there will be extra organs that you will have, because that you say you take organs from someone to give to someone else. The hospitals aren't going to be that communicated with each other that they will know that someone's got this organ that they're sending, or if the organ's not right, you need backup organs. So, yeah.
Thank you, member. The question is bill be narrowed a second time. I call upon the Honourable Kate Novelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Kate Novelli. The opposition has suggested that a choice is provided to individuals through the provision of an opt-out system. However, they have provided no information to suggest that the system of an opt-out provision would work any better than a system of registration. They have provided a provision for an education campaign. However, have we not seen education campaigns fail time and time again on community issues that benefit our citizens? Have we not seen the failure of drink driving campaigns to warn against these, and yet do we not have drink drivers? Have we not seen anti-smoking campaigns, and we still have people who smoke in WA? They have provided no information to suggest that the response to opt out of registration would be any better to the response to registration.
Thank you, member. The question is the bill be narrowed a second time. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it.
An act to make provision for universal presumed consent in relation to the removal of human tissues for transplantation, other therapeutic, medical, scientific and related purposes. Second reading.
Alright, the committee will now consider the Human Tissue and Organ Transplant Bill 2009. And the question is that clause 1 stand as printed. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The question is that clause 2 stand as printed. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. I think the question is that clause 3 stand as printed. All those that opinion say aye. Oh. Okay, I call the Honourable Gemma Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Gemma Lee. I move to insert the words will, as it means as it does in the Wills Act 1970, after ICU, means intensive care unit, so that the clause would then read, 3. Interpretation. In this bill, unless the contrary intention appears, child means person who have not attained the age of 18 years. Next of kin means the closest relative of the age deceased person. Transplant coordinator means in relation to a hospital, means the qualified designated officer. Tissue means that any piece of human anatomy that is used for the transplantation and other purposes. ICU means intensive care unit, and wills means as it does in the Wills Act 1970.
Okay, the question is, the amendment be agreed to? Someone's saying, is it? I call the Honourable Michael Bovell.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Michael Bovell. The Honourable Government's amendment to amend Part 1, Clause 3 to insert the words will means as it does in Wills Act 1970. To allow a declaration of intent to be included in a final will and testament simply cannot be considered. Organs only have a limited life after circulation ceases. The opposition strongly opposes this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. There's no more debate to be had. No worries. Okay, so
would someone like to move that we suspend vote on clause 3 until clause 4 has been heard? Anyone?
I call the Leader of the Government.
Mr. President, the Honourable Dylan Capehorn, I move that we suspend voting on Clause 3 before the voting of Clause 4.
Thank you. Member, the question is that the motion be agreed to. All those that opinion say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no.
No.
I think the ayes have it. Okay. The question is that Clause 4 stand as printed. I call the Honourable Gemma Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. President, the Honourable Gemma Lee. I move to, after the words to donating their organs in their lifetime, I move to insert the words or in their final will, so that the clause would then read, for removal of organs and tissues will be removed from the deceased adults for the purpose of transplantation to another human, if they have not expressed an objection to donating their organs in their lifetime or in their final will.
Thank you, Member. The question is that I call the Honourable Michael Bovell.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Michael Bovell. The Honourable Government's amendment to introduce the provision to allow a declaration of intent to be placed on a final will and testament simply cannot be considered. Under usual circumstances, wills are not read and executed until 7 days after a person has been declared deceased. Often, after burial or cremation, organs have only a limited life after circulation ceases. Lack of oxygen and a build-up of toxins in human tissues after death renders organs untransplantable. This is why the opposition has created provisions for the Western Australian Organ Donation Authority to allow access to declarations of intent immediately to allow the greatest chance of successful transplant. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Member. The question is the amount be agreed to. I call upon the Honourable Luke Ellery.
Mr. President, the Honourable Luke Ellery. The fact is that a person's will is their last surviving memory. It is their last testimony. It is their last wishes. There is a deprivation of rights to ignore it. It is a deprivation of rights. It cannot be denied that if you ignore someone's will, you are disrespecting that person, their memory and their wishes. There is no argument about that. The fact is, the government believes that if you propose a opt-out policy, you would still be required to check if the person has opted out before you take their organs, which would be the same as checking the will to check if they've opted in. There is no difference. There is no difference. If you opt in or if you opt out, it will still be required by law to check if they have done so, which is why it is important to recognise a person's wishes in their final will. Thank you.
The question is, the amendment be agreed to? I call upon the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Lewis Richards. I personally myself, and most of the opposition will agree that it can be seen as an infringement of rights. However, the practicality is the final will is read predominantly at the time too late. Or the organs are useless. It's like saying we're gonna eat this cheese, but no, we're gonna have a discussion about it. So after 35 days, then it's useless. You can't have it. So the reason why we have to disagree with this rule is that it's simple. To get the effective use of the organs, Mr. President, Mr. Committee Chairperson, is that this point is to get the effectiveness of one person's to quick as possible to get from one person's organs to another person's body. If we have a will, this inclusion of this amendment for a will, Mr. Chairperson, it will just remove the whole concept of this bill, and you might as well just call this whole bill void.
The question is, the amendment be agreed to? I call the Honourable Luke Ellery.
Honourable Luke Ellery, Mr. Speaker. Oops, the other way around, who cares? The fact is that either way, whether you have opted in or whether you have opted out, you will be required to check. Now, it has therefore been necessary for us to provide... It is a fact. You cannot, by law, in the current law that it states, you cannot steal someone's organ.
Okay, we have a point of order. The point of order has been acknowledged. Yes, the member does have right to silence, however, the interjections are allowed within reason. Just be mindful of that.
Can I carry on?
Continue.
The fact is, opt in or opt out, you will be required to confirm if they have done so. You cannot take someone's organ if you do not know if they have accepted to the organ or if they have declined to the organ. I therefore propose that it would be important. The fact is, you can't steal someone's organ unless they've said you can. And how will you check if... My point is, if someone's opted out, you will still have to check that they have opted out. And what's the difference between checking if they've opted in the will? Ignore the 7 days and check. Respect the will.
Thank you, member. I call the Honourable Lauren Goodhart.
As the Honourable Member of the Government has just said, that it's very respectful to take someone's organs. Are you aware of how disrespectful it is to read a will before 7 days after the deceased has died? That is very disrespectful to the person that has just died.
I call the Honourable Gemma Lee.
The Honourable... thank you, Mr. Chairman, the Honourable Gemma Lee. The Honourable member just mentioned that it's disrespectful. Well, when it comes to whether you're going to respect their rights or not, I mean, I know exactly where my family's wills are. I can go get it when my family dies. And I can bring it in. And it's going to take as much time as it is... Pardon? But it's my family's wishes. It's in their will. It's something they've signed. And it's going to take as much time as... Let me finish. It's going to take as much time as it will to get your consent forms there as it would for me to go home and grab the will.
Before I give the call, if members have comments to make, they should stand and make them accordingly as in parliamentary way, not just to banter back and forth across the chamber. Give the call to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, the Honourable Lewis Richards. I don't know if people have actually seen this, but if you watch documentaries of hospital programs, actually read things, the time between the person's died, and they know that the organ's is available for donation. They go on the phone to the organ to any person. Is there any person needing this thing? They go, okay. Then they test it. It's done in a matter of minutes and hours. Then straight away, bang! It's on the plane or on the bus or the chopper or any transportation ways. It's not a whole system where they go, oh, it takes many hours, many days. It's not. We're not in the 1980s, 1990s where a click of a switch on a computer takes 5 hours to get to the other side. It's instantaneous. It's instantaneous. We're in a world where I can email and the person on the other side of the world can get it in like split seconds. That's how long basically it takes for the decision of someone to get an organ and to get the testing to find the match to the transportation.
I call upon the Honourable Leader of the Government.
The Honourable Dylan Capel, and I'm glad to say that the Honourable Opposition Leader gets his facts from Grey's Anatomy. However, it must be noted that the will is their final testament. It is them speaking from the grave, and it is their final way of knowing whether they want their organs removed. And if that means having to read it within an hour of them dying, then so be it.
I call the Honourable Christine Hamilton Prime.
Let's be realistic about this. Not many people, well, some people can't find their family's wills, and so what are we going to do? Wait around until we find it? It could be months, days, decades, We could wait, but let's not wait. Let's get the organs in. Let's give them the best chance of life. A single organ donation from one person can benefit over 32 people. Think about that when you vote for this.
Mr. President.
Okay, before I give the call, I remind members to take the time to introduce themselves and not just rush through it, as was just happened. I call the Honourable Vlada. I still can't pronounce the name.
Thank you, Mr. President, the Honourable Vlada Lemake. I'm not sure if the honourable member opposite has actually studied law or not, but the Wills Act actually states that there must be an appointed executor or executrix of the estate, of the deceased estate. This means that you, for instance, the honourable member cannot simply go home, find their parents' will and just execute the wishes within that will. There has to be an appointed executor. This is usually, in a lot of cases, is a solicitor, an expensive solicitor, and a solicitor that will take about a week. This is where the statistic comes from, to execute that will. By that time, the organs are useless. This is why the amendment proposed is completely impractical.
I call on the Honourable Gemma Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the Honourable Gemma Lee. I understand what you're saying, but maybe if you're going to do your 12-month education campaign, you could mention in it that you're going to need, because I understand that an executor can be anyone over the age of 18. Well, that's because my sister is my parents' executor. She can execute their will. That's what we've been told, and that's what she can do. So if you're going to have this entire education campaign, well, maybe you need to say to people that they need to be able to have their executor to be on hand at the time in case death occurs.
I call on the Honourable Luke Ellery.
Kellery, the fact is, you cannot disrespect someone's will. Now, the opposition, yes, it is a shame, but the opposition has rightly raised the point of the time factor. I therefore think it would be necessary, in order to show respect for both the dead and the dying, that the Wills Act itself would be reformed, as this is not, it is not parliamentary. It's not parliamentary to be able to disregard someone's final wishes. It cannot be done. You can cry shame because it is a shame. You cannot disrespect the final wills. That's why it's necessary for you to refer to someone's will after they're dead. And if someone needs an organ within an hour, your leader has already pointed out the time factor is so small in today's society. Emails are shot within seconds. Phone calls are made from the middle of deserts. It is possible because time has been cut down. We can do this. We can integrate wills into this Act.
Thank you, Member. I call the Honourable Vlada Lemake. I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. President, the Honourable Vlada Lemake. I'd like to clarify something for the House. This bill is this whole bill isn't about, the focus should not be on the wills. The aspect, the whole idea of the register is to shorten, completely eradicate the time taken for a notice of an opting out. So it is accessible. It's not going to take 7 days for a solicitor or whoever to come around and execute that will. In response to the honourable member opposite's statements about her sister being executrix to the will, I wasn't aware of that, but that's not the point. In most cases, that's a specific atypical case. Generally, it's a solicitor that is appointed as an executor. Takes time, takes money. This register, the whole point of the register is to cut that time down and to make it easier for organ donors to donate.
Yeah. Thank you, member. The question is, you now be agreed to. Someone seeking the call. Okay, if there's no further speakers. The question is, you may be agreed to. Those that opinion say aye. Those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. I think the noes have it. The noes have it.
If you look in your procedure, you'll find that you have to stand up and say, I think the ayes have it.
Okay, is the division being called?
Yes.
Okay, where's the division page? Okay, lock the doors, ring the bells. Okay, the ayes will move to the right of the chair, the noes to the left. I appoint as teller for the ayes the Leader of the Government and teller for the noes. That's correct, it's my mistake. Move to your respective sides.
It's just the amendment, guys.
Yeah.
It's the amendment. If you think you're going to go through that side, then that's the, you don't think you should go through that side. Yeah, it's the amendment. The first, clause 3 or clause 4?
Clause
4.
Clause 4.
If you agree that the will should be taken into account, move to the right of the chair. If you disagree, move to the left.
Okay, well, I'll point teller for the ayes, the Leader of the Government, teller for the noes, Leader of the Opposition. Nine. Okay, yourself?
Yep.
Cool. 11, so you didn't, did you? Okay, the result of the division is ayes 9, noes 11. Therefore, it is resolved in the negative. Members shall resume their seats. I'll go back up to vote on. Clause 3, don't we?
Clause. We're going to go through clause 3 now. Yeah. The question is.
Yeah, we have to go back to clause 3 because we had to debate clause 3 before we could do clause 4. Okay, so
the question is that clause 3.
Question is that clause 3 stand as printed.
Go through again.
Those that opinion say, okay, who's speaking on it?
Just clarify, is this to the original or the amended?
This is the amendment
It'll now be
to change the interpretation.
It'll now be the original because the clause 4 was defeated.
So therefore there's no reason to amend clause 3?
The expression I'm saying is that people are personally find it as well, that you're saying is it how standard printed, is that the original how it's printed or is it the amendment?
It's the original as standard.
In the bill.
Is how it's printed.
Okay.
Under control, everyone happy with that? Good, okay, so question is that the amendment to clause 3 be agreed to. All those that opinion say aye.
To the contrary, no.
To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. There we go.
So then you have to go through the other clauses. Clause
Okay.
5 on.
Question is that clause 5 stand as printed. All those that opinion say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question is that clause 6 stand as printed. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question is that clause 7 stand as printed. All those that opinion say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question is that clause 8 stand as printed. All those that opinion say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. Okay, the question is that clauses 9 through 12 be agreed to. All those that opinion say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. The question is that clause 13 stand as okay. I call the Honourable Kate Novelli.
Kate Novelli move to delete the word 10 and substitute the word for, so that clause 13 will then read 13. Mandatory review. The use and impact of universal presumed consent of tissues will be reviewed every 4 years by a joint select committee of the Western Australian Parliament.
The question is, the amendment be agreed to. I call the Honourable Michael Bovell.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Michael Bovell. Public opinion on organ donation would not sway, or technologies would not advance sufficiently in a 4-year period. 4 years is not sufficient time frame to allow proper studies and data to be collected. The opposition strongly opposes this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Member. The question is, the amendment be agreed to. Well, as I call the Leader of the Government.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The bill itself, thank you, Opposition Leader, the Honourable Dylan Capel. That's the first bit of bipartisanship we've seen today.
Could be the last. Go on.
The idea that to make the review every 4 years and every 10 years, instead of every 10 years, is due to the fact that you're dealing with people's body parts here, and you're dealing with a very sensitive issue of taking people's body parts and putting them in other bodies. Therefore, by making the review every 4 years, you allow the system, and I disagree with the fact that it doesn't allow the technologies to advance. It does. It allows it to quickly advance, to make everything quicker, and I believe that this is a great amendment.
Question is, the amendment be agreed to. I call the Honourable Luke Ellery.
Mr. President, the Honourable Luke Ellery, I also agree with the statement of 4 years. I do think that 4 years, a lot can happen. 4 years, medical research can change. You cannot deny that 4 years of change is a long period of time as opposed to a decade. A decade does not allow the accuracy, it does not allow the precision, and it allows too much change. We cannot let things go unnoticed. We cannot let things slip under the radar. 10 years is way too long to be able to just continue checking up. It needs to be every 4. If the government says that there is no change, and if they, by any chance, were right, then what would be the loss of having that committee investigate every 4 years? If the result was negative, then that is fine. But if that committee did not investigate within 4 years and that had a detrimental effect, then that would be to the opposition's loss. That would be shameful. Thank you.
Thank you, Member. I call the Honourable Vlada.
Thank you, Mr. President, the Honourable Vlada Lemake. The Howard government was in power for 12 years. Look how much change happened then. Look, 4 years is simply too short a time. Not only that, but organ transplant, organ donation is an honourable thing to do. There is no justification that has been offered by the government for shortening the period of the committee review to 4 years. It should stay at a decade. Thank you.
I call the Honourable Jemalee.
That we are moving for it to become 4 years, that a lot of things did happen during the 12 years, but if you have a lot of things happen during 4, but too much will happen during that 10 years for the one committee to solve them and to act on it, and to act and to keep this system in order. You're going to need a shorter time than 10 years. It's just too long, and too much change is going to occur.
I call the Honourable Luke Ellery.
President, the Honourable Luke Ellery. The point was made about John Howard's 12-year reign, but if we divide that into 4 period year intervals, we see that change happens within 4 years. Within 4 years, we had GST. Within 4 years, Australia was engaged in the war on terrorism due to Bali and the Twin Tower events. Events happen that change society. The way people view, they can happen within split seconds, and they can very easily happen within 4 years. It is illogical, it is unreasonable, it is just plain not good enough to check up once every 10 years. It just does not meet the standards. If their bill is as perfect as they believe it is, then what fear do they have of it being refined every 4 years? There should be no resistance to refining, to perfecting a bill. This is people's organs and deceased bodies we're dealing with. This should be perfection. 10 years is just, the body would have rotted by then. Like, that is embarrassing. It is shame. It is shame.
I call the Honourable Lewis Richards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, the Honourable Lewis Richards. I'm just going to use one of the great phrases the government like to throw at us, what if? So what if, every 4 years there's a thing called an election, or every 3 years, and normally each political side has a different opinion. So what if one says 10 and one says 4? So every 4 years now we change to 10. Every year we change to 4. Every year to 10, 4, 10 and 4. It's to keep going until something happens like that. So the key for the reason why it's 10 years is that there's no evidence and no decision to say that the accuracy of statistics will be lost, Mr. Chairperson. 10 years will show us a good trend over the 10 years if organ donation decreases, if the demand decreases, if the supply increases. It will give us a good determination of the statistics to see that if this 10 years or this bill is correct, and it will do good for this state of WA.
Mr. Chairperson.
I call the Honourable Christine Hamilton Prime.
The Honourable Christine Hamilton Prime. If the members opposite want to talk about years, let's look at war. We're still in Iraq and Afghanistan. I think John Howard said about 4. It takes a long time to do a review like this, like war. We're still there, and we're not. It doesn't look like we're going to come back anytime soon. So it's a long process. It's not a 4-year thing. It's a long process. So stop trying to cut the years, because they need to have that time to collect all the information.
Yeah. Again, I remind members that if they are seeking to call a point of order, they do it through the chair, and so the chair can effectively rule on that, rather than just yelling out across the chamber. Thank you. Is someone seeking the call for the amendment? If not, we'll put it to the vote. Question is that the amendment be agreed to. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. Aye. The noes have it. Well, is division being called?
Yes.
Ring the bells off the doors. Ding, ding, ding. No worries. Okay, the ayes will move to the right of the chair, the noes to the left. What are they sitting up on the edge for?
Because the last speaker told them they could do that.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, I appoint as teller for the ayes, for the noes, Christine Hamilton Prime, and for the ayes again, Dylan Capel.
Okay, Matt. It's not mine, but ayes have 9.
Ayes have 9, and noes have 11. The result of the division is ayes 9, noes 11, a majority of 2 for the noes. Therefore, the amendment is resolved in the negative. Okay. The question is that this shall be the title of the bill. All those that appear and say aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Sponsor of the bill. Stand up.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Michael Bovell. I move that the bill now be read a 3rd time.
Before we do that, we have to actually make us to move that I, as the chairman, report the bill to the House, or the Council as it is.
Oh, sorry.
Never mind. The question is that The chairman reports the bill to the House. All those that opinion say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. And I just want to talk to myself here. All right, I'll take this back, sorry. Go into third reading. I call the Honourable Michael Bovell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the bill now be read a third time. I refer to the Human Tissue and Organ Transplant Bill of 2009, Part 2, Section 5A. Which states that a record may be kept of exact tissues to be removed and use of these tissues to be limited by a notice of intent. So this allows a person to describe which organs are and are not available for transplant. If a person might have a strong belief that they would like to keep their heart or other parts of their body with them to the grave, this notice of intent, a record may be kept of this. And I also refer to the Human Tissue and Organ Transplant Bill of 2009, Part 2, Section 5D. Presumed consent does not apply to tissues used for scientific research or other use with indicated consent needed from either the deceased or next of kin. Increased organ donation provides social and economic benefits to the community. Australia's organ donation rates are among the lowest in the world, and current legislation and culture have not led to increased rates. Organ donation are not occurring as a result of donors not being identified quickly enough and the next of kin refusing consent. The economic benefits to increased donation are vast. Not only will there be taxpayer money saved with savings in the cost of health, transplant recipients will be able to contribute directly to the economy, resulting in greater tax revenue. One donor can help save or improve the quality of life for up to 32 people. This may be to help a child with leukemia by donating bone marrow, or to help a blind person see by donating corneas. In Western Australia in 2003, 46% of families refused organ donation. But this is high, given that 90% of Australians are in favour of organ donation. By passing this bill and changing Western Australia's organ donation system to a presumed consent system will increase organ donation rates, while respecting individuals' choice not to donate their organs.
I call the Honourable Gemma Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Gemma Lee. I do not feel that this bill isn't needed, but as none of the amendments are passed, I feel that it's still in a shocking state. There is still clarity needed in its writing. The mandatory review still needs to be a short amount of a time. And it still violates the civil liberties of a person's right to choose. The idea of putting the education program in is a good thing, and through that education program, the opposition could have chosen to place that maybe it would have been a good idea to get a relative or friend over the age of 18 to be your executor of your will, so that they can bring it to the hospital when a person dies and organs can be transported. Organs can be transported in time. The amendments were relevant, and without these amendments, this bill is just not up to standard to be doing such an important process. We need more organs, and I'm not disputing that fact, but it needs to be organised in a better way than this bill has already stated.
would you like to move that the bill now be read a third time?
Just stand up and say that.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the bill now be read a third time.
Okay. The question is that the West Australian YMCA Youth Parliament, YMCA Legislative Council, agree that the bill be now read for a third time. All those that opinion say shall pass to the right of the chair, and those to the left.
Confused.
Okay. Lock the doors.
One's here.
Okay, the question is that the bill be read for a third time. I appoint as teller for the ayes, Lewis Richards, and teller for the noes, Luke Ellery. Okay. It'll be 9.
You have to sit back down, Luke. Sit down.
With one abstain. Okay. The result of the division is ayes 19 and noes 1, a majority of 18 for the noes, so for the ayes. Therefore, the motion is resolved in the affirmative. Members should resume their seats.
So is that our first bill?
Yes.
As a result of debate and division, the ayes have it, and the bill will now be read for a third time.
An act to make provision for universal presumed consent in relation to the removal of human tissues for transplantation, other therapeutic, medical, scientific and related purposes. Third reading.
That's it.
Good job, guys. First bill passed. How does it feel? Positive?
You can sit back down. I just want to say something just really quickly. All your arguments and information was great, but the organisation we really need to work on a bit. That was probably partially my fault. I had not read the bill or been briefed on the council procedures due to unforeseen circumstances. So yeah, that's just something we've got to be a bit mindful of next time. Just following the scripted conversation that we have in the books and just being mindful of what stage we're at certain points. Otherwise, it was really good. I'm happy.
Sorry guys to come in last minute. Fran was meant to be speaking a bit of the logistical stuff up, so I was wondering, Fran, do you want to come over and just have a chat to them for 15-20 minutes?
Yeah, could the sponsor I guess the bill was fairly passed pretty positively, but Michael, would you like to explain to Mr. Logan what the bill was about and what he's missed?
You don't have to do the whole second reading speech yet. Well, basically, we wanted to create
a bill where everybody is in an opt-out situation. Anybody can opt out at any time, but we really wanted to put in a situation where the next of kin can't interfere with that consent.
Yeah. Oh, look, the debate, I caught the last part of the debate, which seemed to be very good, and your response and
What's the name of the bill?
I've got it on.
The debate itself as the mover of the bill.
I sent it to you.
I think, as has just been said, remember if in Parliament, because it's about time management and about ensuring that you get your voice heard when you move the third reading. You've got to be really quick to make sure that the opposition or whoever's opposing the bill is not going to go, well, you've had your time, and try and move on, or try and put something else in there. You've actually got to be up quickly and making sure that in taking responsibility for the bill, you've actually got to respond very quickly, because otherwise, someone on this side could interject and cause you a bit of a problem in the way in which you're taking the bill through the House. In terms of the issues that you're dealing with, they're great. because, I mean, this is a real issue. The bill that you've put up could easily come up, be put up by a private member at any time in Western Australia. For example, Janet Woolard, as an independent member, I wouldn't say, the people are laughing, you always see that before. That's right. That's why I picked out an independent member. It'd be very difficult for a party to put it up because it would probably end up exactly as you've got it here, as a conscience vote. But an independent could always put a bill up like this and cause a significant amount of debate in Western Australia and a significant amount of debate in the Parliament. But it's a real issue. It could easily come up at any stage and be addressed in this chamber in the same way as you dealt with it. So I know it feels like you're in here having a bit of fun, but the bill's a real bill, could be a real bill, and the way in which you dealt with it could be in exactly the same way in which parliamentarians like myself have to deal with that type of legislation. So congratulations to everybody involved, and particularly congratulations to everybody who's helped organise this, because you haven't taken something that's so far out of the realms of reality, as though you're just playing around and playing games. What you're doing is you've taken a real bill that could come up at any stage and debated it in the same way as parliamentarians would actually debate it. And I think that the conscience vote was the appropriate way to approach it as well. Whoever came up with the idea of the conscience vote, rather than putting it to a normal.
Yeah, we always run a conscience vote for the third reading.
Yeah. Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But normally it's a little bit more divided than that. So we've brought in the procedure of an automatic division.
I didn't
That'd be slightly embarrassing for, so, but.
Why did you vote against it, by the way?
There were several amendments that weren't put through that I didn't agree with, and I don't know. Actually, I don't know.
Fair enough, but I mean, if there are amendments that you disagree with, then of course the content of the whole bill you couldn't support either. So that's fair enough. Things are obviously up here in the upper house are far more staid than they are in the lower house. I've just left them all shouting and screaming at each other down there, which seems to be very much like my normal day-to-day work, really. In the upper house, as you could tell, things are far more gentlemanly, because it's the house of the crown. But obviously those rules don't apply to you, and of course you can get stuck into each other if you don't agree with things. I believe the next bill you're dealing with is... Oh, that's going to be a doozy. So, so please don't feel that you have to abide by the same rules that guide the upper house members. You can actually interject on one another, as long as it doesn't become too unparliamentary. Remember, no swearing in here. Although you will get called, if I'm in the chair, you will get called to order if some unparliamentary language comes out. Things like, I've got away with buffet. I mean, that's now been deemed not unparliamentary. But things like dickhead is. Now I know that there's only a slight difference between buffet and dickhead, but it's subtleties like that you'll get called to order on. I've just one of the members down in the other house at the moment has just been called to order for calling another person a moron, which actually I think under our parliamentary debate is actually not out of order. So I think Ben White's in the chair. I thought he was pretty harsh. He was pretty harsh calling someone to order over that. I thought, we get away with it. I must admit, in the federal parliament, they get away, I was watching it the other day, they get away with a lot more than what we do here in Western Australia. In fact, they call each other liars, which you're not allowed to do in the West Australian parliament. So, which is, there's a few things that are different in the federal parliament to the state.
I think in Ben's case as Speaker, he's been involved for the last 3 or 4 years, and since then we've actually relaxed the laws quite a bit. So I think he's still living like it's back and it was very, very, very...
Yeah, I actually read your rules of debate.
So it's been relaxed quite a bit, so I think he's still living back in...
You actually can get away with a lot more.
But have you enjoyed it so far, in terms of the preparation and also the debate? Oh, good on you. Well done. Well done. I'm just so impressed that that you've got a great deal of interest in it and are willing to turn up and play this role, but two, that the issues, as I say, that you deal with are not just silly issues. They're actually real issues that that we as Parliament would possibly have to deal with at any stage. When the debate that's going on in the lower house at the moment is the position that's been put up by the government is the construction of a pipeline from the Kimberley to a gas processing hub in the Dampier archipelago. In the Dampier, the northwest shelf, as opposed to building an LNG gas hub in the Kimberley. Now that is a real debate. That's been an argument between, say, for example, Woodside and companies like Chevron and Impex. That's been the debate between them. That was a debate that occurred in the lower house. And so what the Youth Parliament has done is taken that very issue and turned it into a real issue for a piece of legislation. So that's what I like about it. It takes real day-to-day issues and turns them into a debate in the chamber, which you can thrash it out as though you're actually elected here. So congratulations to everybody involved. Thanks very much. What's next?
We have lunch, afternoon caucus in 16 minutes.
Right.
That's what I do. But if you'd like, may I suggest we might spend this time writing some speeches for the next bill. Because we've got 90 seconds, we've got to fill it up. We don't want to be finishing half an hour early again.
You go to the front bench, provide support for your neighbours, and your back bench, right? Yeah, front bench is the ones that sit at the front row, and the back bench is the one that sit at the back row. So yeah, write notes down with points of views and ideas and stuff, so everyone can have something to talk about.
Can we start? Yeah, guys, have a chat. Sort out a game plan.
Just try and hang around in the chamber though, because they're still going down in the assembly.
Yeah. They're going to 3 down. They probably will have 2 when they go.
Yeah, they probably. Yes, because they pushed out time for question time and stuff today. We did. I hear it was nowhere near as vibrant as across the hall.
It was quite good down there.
They did quite well, but poor Tammy, she's the one putting up the pedophile castration bill. She just got pedophile castration bill. She's been she copped it terribly for half an hour. But they
tried to give it to the leader to share some of it, but he passed it on to her. So we're trying to split it up, but it's all gone to her. So.
With this being the first council we've ever ran, it's still very much trial and error.
We've got our afternoon caucus, and the next bill is scheduled to start.
Maybe about 3:30, I reckon.
Yes, 3:30. No.
So yeah, the council aspect is very much trial and error. We just had a large number of participants, so we decided to run it.
But it's actually been surprising. With the amendments and stuff, the lower house they're arguing everything. Up here, the 2 leaders sat down with their glasses on, papers everywhere. Yeah, well, that sounds reasonable. We'll agree to that, and all this. Whereas on the other side of the table, exact same room, Chad and Zach are yelling at each other. It was just we didn't set it up like this at all, but they've really mimicked the. It's a warmer room. It may well be. But he's a bit dozy or something. It's strange. Yeah.
Whereas down there it was a mess.
Yeah, there's just crazy people down there.
Yeah, that's right. We like it down there like that, though.
I can't decide where I want to be for the next hour. Next bill. Euthanasia or pedophile castration.
I'm clerking euthanasia. That was put him around. So
Did he tell you that he paid?
It seems to have been an email, but
I'm sure. I don't know why that wasn't a question. It didn't come up. I'm surprised.
Yeah, we would have done it, but it's in the normal debate.
Yeah.
So how much did you pay for that one?
so yeah, Zach has gone above and beyond. They've all gone above and beyond. So
Oh, good.
some of them,
That's fantastic.
yeah.
Very good couch was good.
Makes our job as task force like
Video to make for good video watching.
Yeah.
Or just in the nuclear power cells. That's really took my fancy.
Well, yeah, that was a bit of a problem because it was meant to be a debate about
everyone-
mining.
Yeah, who cares about mining? One person there.
You're not involved in it, are you?
I'm not involved in it. No, I'm sure it's an important thing, but it's not as like topical as you.
Yeah, no. Okay.
So, and Thursday, it's today, tomorrow, and Thursday, yeah, because I'm back on Thursday. I think
Oh, what have you got
I might
then?
be in here on Thursday, I think. Am I in the chair on Thursday? I know it's in the diary, my diary on Thursday.
Looks like you're in the assembly.
Right.
Fuel and energy reform bill. Lucky you.
That's a
Right up my alley, that one.
Have you read it?
I haven't got it downstairs yet.
It's a
It's actually
monster.
quite, it's a complex bill.
That one is,
Yeah.
There's some really complex.
That's another above and beyond.
Yeah, that was Billy and Lewis and some others putting that one together. I
Yeah.
didn't think they'd go that far.
Oh, I know. And they cut bits out of it. There was a cool bit in there a while ago about creating a ferry system, and I just thought that was cool because I like ferries. But apparently Chad convinced Simon to take it out because it was a bit ridiculous. But, you know.
When I first saw it, I thought you could try and cut some out. But they said they would cut a heap, so we can't put some.
What's your opinion on Michael Owen then?
Sorry?
What's your opinion on Michael Owen then, going to Man United?
I know.
What do you reckon?
I've got no idea. Free transfer.
Yeah, what do you reckon?
I think
Risk?
he's probably on a pension.
Yeah, probably. I reckon he's just
How old
been.
is he?
He's 29. But he's
Like,
been.
what are they talking about?
Soccer.
Not just
Soccer.
politics, I don't understand these
It's one
names.
of those weird round ball games.
Yeah,
and
soccer.
I don't understand that game.
Circle ball, you kick it around, you can't pick it up because that's not called football, that's AFL. Yeah, that's what
Actually,
AFL's called
excuse me,
football.
stop. Who had the first code? AFL 4 years preceding soccer's code.
The official
The official code,
rules of football came out 4 years after, but football's been playing since 1200s.
Yeah, but what's official? It's about the official.
Yeah.
Official. If you
Official FIFA rules
if you
started in
English people came
rugby.
and like colonised us earlier, it would have been. It's just-
Colonisers, we'd have had the best Aboriginal soccer team. Yeah, possibly could, but.
Yeah.
Should have sent an Irish over sooner, and then we would be fine.
Gaelic, yeah. No, but then again, AFL was only created for people, for cricketers who wanted to keep fit in the off-season.
Yeah, that's right.
And they had circle grounds, so they couldn't have a football pitch. So then let's make a game which is circle, and there was more people, so let's have bounce and you can carry the ball. So it's like...
It's a great sport.
Well done, Lewis. Well done. That's a great bit of research there already.
I finally grasped the idea of the game after 3 years.
I missed the game yesterday.
I was going to say, after watching the dockers yesterday, I couldn't care less about it.
I missed the game. I was supposed to be there, but I wasn't.
Oh, I just couldn't believe it. I nearly wrecked the TV. I was screaming at the game. I mean, fancy losing the game 4 minutes before the end of the match.
Oh, that's just because their name's Dockers, I think.
Called chokers, sorry, no, sorry.
It happens.
Last year was atrocious, man. Like 8 games, they had a 3/4 time, they lost out.
What are you doing?
So have these guys all taken off to the party rooms, or?
Yeah, I think, yeah, probably.
No, I think they've all gone to the LA, I think. Because you said the caucus was in 16 minutes, so I don't think why.
Oh, they've all taken off to watch.
Have you got your own tea rooms and stuff like that?
Apparently we've been given permission to borrow the Liberal and Labor Party rooms for the afternoon caucus. So yeah. So it's division on the Kimberley Industrial Development.
Yeah, it's close.
Oh,
no, it goes straight to division.
I started losing my way down there. I couldn't remember. I couldn't work out exactly who was speaking for the bill and who was speaking against it. Because it appeared to me there was people on the
starting with Youth Parliament, he's going to become a famous singer, and then he's going to go back.
I reckon Matt would be an actor, not a singer. I reckon he's got the acting. He acts a lot. You hardly ever see the real Matt when you see him. It's very often he's always performing for someone. So he should stick to I reckon acting first, then to politics.
It's interesting at the moment with independents in the lower house. John Bowler
government up here and...
I would assume government are
Yeah. Alright, I guess we should...
I'm going to come and speak to caucus. I don't know which caucus.
I imagine it'll be the Labour.
So
Which
I'll go,
opposition?
yeah, I'll go. Yeah,
I imagine it
I'll
would be
go
it.
talk to the Labour caucus. Then I'll go. I'm going to go and meet John Cummings from the IGA stores, like a retail trading house. And what's your opinion?
No
Actually,
way.
No.
I
sorry? We're doing the business of the day.
Sorry, I'm just collecting myself here. Work out exactly where you got to today. I don't know where we are. I've got information in front of me to tell me where we're at.
Yeah, we're going to have to use because I need
Business
that
of the day? Okay. So, where am I looking?
Business of the day.
Sorry, guys.
Do we have another one? Do we have another
What's this?
booklet? Is it this one?
Doesn't
Yeah, we
this
use
have
this
it?
one. Sorry, we'll just get you a booklet.
Yeah, you kind of sprung yourself on us.
There's not as many members, so we can afford a slight lapse.
Yeah. Oh, this happens in normal business too, don't worry.
Doesn't she need the speaking
Yeah, she just needs this.
See if it's in it.
This is the procedure. Oh, wait, it's the assembly. It's the council.
Just change the word speaker to
No, wait a minute. It does say president.
Okay, no worries. So that's where we're at?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good. So what we're dealing with this afternoon is business of the day, and I think the clerk has a bill.
Business of the day. Order number 8 from the Legislative Council, standing under the name of the Honourable Tamianne Caldwell.
Thank you. I call on the Honourable sorry, I didn't get them. Have I got a list of names too? Yeah, cool. That's even better. Wonderful. And I'm looking over.
It's actually all here.
It's all here. I just have to find it. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. So, who are we talking about? Thank you. Okay. I give the call to Tamianne Caldwell, member for the South West.
President, the Honourable Tamianne Caldwell. I move to introduce a bill, the Child Protection Pedophile Castration Bill 2009, and that it be read a first time.
Thank you. The question is that I have that here. I do have that bit of paper here. Child Protection Pedophile Castration Bill 2009 be read a first time. And I would ask all of those of that opinion to say aye. Those against to say no. The ayes have it. Clerk.
Child Protection Pedophile Castration Bill 2009. A bill for an act to make it mandatory to have convicted male child sex offenders where the child is under the age of 12 chemically castrated after their first conviction and mandatorily surgically castrated after their second conviction. First reading.
I give the call to Tamianne Caldwell.
Thank you, Madam President. The Honourable Tamianne Caldwell. I move that the bill be now read a second time. We have established the supporting indisputable statistics for this bill, but child sexual abuse is not about statistics, it's about real life. A WA child sexual abuse survivor wrote this: I survived 10 years of sexual abuse and can tell you it is worse than murder. Children are not meant to go through the physical and emotional trauma of sex. Only those who have survived sexual abuse truly know the fear and pain and how hard it is to get through this. A father whose son was raped and murdered by a repeat sex offender after he had been released is furious that human rights groups are putting the rights and liberties of criminals ahead of victims. He said, "My son is in heaven and he's never coming back. Everyone is worried about the rights and liberties of the criminal sex offenders, but what about the rights and liberties of a 9-year-old boy with his whole life ahead of him?" And sex offences are on the rise. Children are proportionally overrepresented in sexual assault victimisation. Nearly 50% of recorded sexual assault victims are babies aged 0 to kids of 14, 0 to 14. And they're not just words and statistics, these are real babies and real children. Almost 3,700 children aged 0 to 9 were sexually assaulted in 1 year, 2003. That's more than everyone in your whole high school. Sex offenders have the highest rate of reoffending. 96 to 99% of sex offenders are male. Castration works to protect children and allow sex offenders safely back into the community with no chance of reoffending. We've established these facts. How can you say it is a shame to protect 99% of young children from being sexually abused? We have shown you your facts this morning. But sexual offence doesn't infer the real disturbing, graphic nature of these despicable crimes. Almost 50% of sexual assaults on children are touching, vaginal and anal penetration and masturbation on poor little innocent children. Now, you might ask why to make it mandatory and not just voluntary. Voluntary castration, like they have in Queensland, is no good because it won't solve the problem and protect children. Only 60% of alleged sexual offenders taken to court in Australia plead guilty. They don't admit they have a problem, so they won't volunteer for castration. Many don't want to stop. If you watch the news and read the newspapers, you would see that sex offenders often say they don't think what they've done is wrong because I love the child. They don't want to stop. They are biologically sick men who either can't or don't want to stop raping children. It is a biological illness, so they're not going to volunteer. Since introducing voluntary castration in Queensland last year, only 3 have actually volunteered. A male Labor MP, male Labor in Queensland, said the lowlife and scum who harm our children often have no remorse, no guilt. They don't believe what they've done is wrong, so we cannot rehabilitate them. But chemical castration does work. The statistics back this up. The reoffence rates are the highest for sexual offenders than for all criminals. So current rehabilitation does not work. The statistics this morning proved that. And the statistics, no, you use Wikipedia. And the statistics prove castration works to protect children. In this bill, counselling and rehabilitation will also be carried out to try and get them to show remorse, to try and get them to want to be castrated. But this doesn't always work. If they do volunteer, it will be looked upon favourably when they apply for parole periods. And when they get out, the children will be safe because castration works. This bill is about child protection, not crime prevention, but it does birth.
Member, order. Sorry, your time's expired. Thank you. I need the name of the refuter to the motion. It's not on that, no, sorry. Okay, that looks like the Honourable Georgia O'Keefe. How's that?
Madam President, the Honourable Georgia O'Keefe. This legislation, to put it bluntly, is absolutely ludicrous. The entire explanatory memorandum is made up of ridiculous assumptions, baseless and irrelevant statistics, and vague explanations. Not only this, but including names and specific cases in a bill is not allowed by law. The first sentence is a motive designed to make us see one small side of this much larger and often less black and white issue. Saying that many reoffend is a vague statement with no statistical evidence behind it. And the fact that many are released on parole, well, this is simply a standard procedure in our judicial system. Many murderers are released on parole, as well as rapists and other despicable criminals. Perhaps the Minister for Justice could revise the whole idea of parole so that truly sick criminals can get a sure life sentence, keeping them off the streets and guaranteeing no chance of reoffending, as opposed to castrating them and risking them in society. The second paragraph, really important to beginning the case, is just stupid. What evidence does the government have that the release of Jackway and a 13-year-old boy going missing is related? The fact that the first piece of evidence that the government has given us is based on a vague assumption simply sums everything up. This bill is populist and reactionary and has only been drafted to make the people of this state feel safe in the knowledge that something is being done. So now I could go through the rest of the extreme examples stated of people released from jail on parole, but I've already addressed this. And anyway, many of these were released on parole, have not reoffended. Isn't the point of this bill to stop reoffenders? Skipping through all the emotive and dramatic language, we get to the description of the drug, or lack of. Firstly, there is no mention of the actual drug the government intend to use for chemical castration. It is generally a drug referred to as MPA, and whilst yes, it does suppress the production of male hormones as is suggested, it also includes a number of side effects such as diabetes mellitus, irregular gallbladder functioning, diverticulitis, testicular atrophy.
Order, members. Order. Just 1 minute, please. A little bit of interjection's okay, but I need to be able to hear what the speaker's saying. And if the speaker addresses her comments perhaps in my direction, you might find we had less interjection. Thank you.
Thrombosis, really the list goes on. Surely some of these side effects, or at least the name of the actual drug, should be included in the bill. The explanatory memorandum then goes through a German study that is not only uncited but not mathematically correct. Even when talking percentages, it is important that the numbers are even to get a fair comparison. And the study is from 1989, that is 20 years ago. Surely there are more recent examples for real relevance. It then goes on to talk about 4 Czechoslovakians interviewed by The Sun. Not only is the Czech Republic not relevant to Australia, but The Sun, for those who are not aware, is more of a tabloid than an actual credible newspaper, and as a result is not a good source to cite in legislation. Then more extreme example through Fritzl, a man who locked his daughter up for years and fathered children with her. More irrelevant facts, Queensland having voluntary castration is not a forefront for Western Australia to have almost mandatory castration under a first offence, finally finishing off with some more dramatic language. That's the memorandum. To the bill. Other than the ridiculous, dramatic and irrelevant explanatory memorandum, the barbaric nature of the whole idea behind mandatory surgical castration after the second offence, the confusion and lack of clarity between the terms child sex offender and paedophile, and the lack of prevention through education, the opposition finds the entire bill discriminatory through the severe lack of provisions for female sex offenders.
Okay, member, order. Member, your time has expired. Thank you. So I move that the bill be read a second time. I call the Honourable Sophie Burke.
Madam Speaker, Honourable Sophie Burke. I personally disagree with the opposition's view. The drug that we are talking about works extremely well. It's called triptolan, and it has proven to have 100% success rates, and the only side effects have been proven to be very few and only small as fatigue. And I think that's a fair enough thing that child sex offenders should have. The New England Journal of Medicine reported that castration in many European countries, including Iceland, Norway, Germany, reoffending rates using this drug have dropped from 50% to 5%. These chemical castration is now practiced in these countries and in Queensland, Britain, Canada, South Korea, Poland, and many US states. A European previous sex offender who did have chemical castration says that it helped recommend them to overcome overwhelming urges to rape children. German study shows that 3% of the castrated reoffenders reoffend. 3% of the castrated will reoffend, whereas 46% of these non-castrated will reoffend. So science is proving that this drug, not the drug that our opposition has talked about, works. The recorded sexual assault prevalence rate for victims under 15 years of age has increased in recent years. Doesn't this show that we need to actually work harder for new type of rehabilitation? So going to jail is not working anymore. The purpose of this bill is a child protection, not a crime prevention, but this bill works for both.
Members, I move that the bill be read a second time. The Honourable...
Thank you, Madam President. The Honourable Vlada Lemake.
How do I pronounce your name?
Vlada Lemake.
Vlada. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, right. Now, the bill. Look, this bill is simply preposterous. The government here is wasting... Look, Madam Speaker, Madam President, the government here is wasting Parliament's time in introducing a reckless, ill-conceived bill that has baseless statistics. There's Wikipedia. Wikipedia is not a definite source, okay? Let's have a look at it this way, right? The only drug that has been...
Sorry, members, a point of order?
I can't hear the member speak.
And you're sitting next to him. That's amazing. Okay, members, a little less or a little less volume with interjection, and it is important that we actually hear the speaker as well.
Thank you, Madam President. The only medication that has been approved that is not experimental is a drug called MDA. Its side effects, and let me list, these were from a psychological study, are weight gain, hyperinsulinemic response to glucose, diabetes mellitus, irregular gallbladder functioning, diverticulitis, fatigue or lethargy, testicular atrophy, sweats, nightmares, dyspnea, hypogonadism, hot and cold flashes, leg cramps, hypertension, thrombosis and insomnia. There's just so many side effects for you to conclude that this drug is safe and that there are no long-lasting side effects. In fact, this psychological study said that even after the chemical castration drug has been ceased to have been prescribed, it takes 6 whole months for the effects to wear off. Not only that, look, the government here is wasting, I'll show them to you, the government here is wasting our time introducing an ill-conceived bill. Why not go to the source of the problem? We have an issue in the society. It's called the sexualization of children in the media. Instead of introducing a reactionary, reckless bill, why not go straight to the source when there are children being paraded on the TV?
Thank you, member. Member, your time's expired. That's not your job, mate. No, that's not a point of order. Let me put it that way. Yes, I'll remove the... Sorry, no, your time has expired, so that it's correct, but it's just not procedurally correct. I give the call to the Honourable Michael Bovell.
Thank you, Madam President. The Honourable Michael Bovell. I refer to question time this morning. The Honourable Member for South West has admitted herself that she cannot guarantee in 100% of circumstances that chemical or surgical castration will not cause any long-term effects. The Minister is introducing a bill that may cause long-term side effects and in effect causing premature death. This is a form of long-term capital punishment.
Members, I move that the bill be read a second time. I call the Honourable Dylan Capehorn.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm amazed, actually. The side effects that the Honourable Member opposite listed, nightmares and insomnia, two things which don't go together. And I'd like to congratulate them on becoming the communist Chinese state that they are. The communist Chinese state that they are by censoring the media. This is ridiculous. But, Madam President, I would like to outline the idea of women in this bill. The opposition have said that it is not a gender-neutral bill. That is because a child sex offence is not a gender-neutral crime. Women still do it, but only 1% do it. Why save 99% instead of just none? We're not condoling them. This is used in conjunction with prison sentences. Because at the moment there is no current structure for women to be castrated. Therefore, the purpose of this bill is child protection, not crime prevention, but it serves both.
Move the bill be read a second time. Yes, I give the call to the Honourable Lewis Richards.
Thank you, Madam President. The Honourable Lewis Richards. Now, the opposition, we do not deny that sex offence on children is a serious crime. However, we find that castration is not the answer for this problem. Castration is an inhumane procedure. Although many believe that many people... Point of order, can I say it's my turn to speak? Thank you. Many believe that they deserve it, or we are a nation, or are we a nation that would sink low to their level? Or are we a nation that prides itself on a judicial system to determine a punishment? Now, long ago are the days in Australia and most Western countries where we use procedures to punish offenders. America is an exception, so you would expect a small amount of offences and low prison rates. Well, no, actually. America has the highest percentage of population in prison, so there's no proof tougher penalties act as a deterrent. Yeah. Now, does castration actually solve the issue of child sex offences paedophilia? Child castration affects the sexual organs. However, most cases of child sex offences come from mental problems and not the directly sexual urges. A study by the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health in Toronto appeared in the Journal of Psychiatric Research 2007, find that a significant lack of white matter, which is part of your nervous system, connecting 6 areas of the brain all known to play a role in sexual arousal. The lack of adequate wiring between different centres results in paedophiles not being able to differentiate between appropriate and inappropriate sexual operates. But this is not to say that they're responsible for their actions. That's why we have a thing called prison to punish them. Now, this bill is reactionary. It does not solve the main issue, as shown in the USA. Harsher penalties do not result in less crime. It is more of a reaction response to the crime. It is actually not protecting the child. According to the child protection minister, she is leaving that child to be a lamb for the slaughter. So the rest of them are put in. It is actually other issues such as increasing child welfare, new social welfare laws to protect children from violent parents would have been used. But instead, we have a barbaric bill put forward by weak, reactionary governments.
Thank you, member. Members, I might just point out my attitude on interjections is if a member doesn't respond or invite interjections, then I tend to think that they should be moderated. If the member's responding and enjoying a bit of cut and thrust, that's okay, but if the member wants to be heard in silence, that's also their right. I give the call to the Honourable Michael Goff, was it? No, someone up the back there? Who? Someone stood up the back? Was it yourself? Is that the Honourable Mitchell Goff? Sorry. Yes. Thank you.
I think that the general consensus of the opposition of this bill is that it's absolute ludicrous. What we have is a populist attempt at a reactionary bill that is concerned more with vengeance than with the serving of justice. I think I've said that's all I need to say.
I move the bill be read a second time. I give the call to the Honourable Joshua... Oh, this is tricky. How do I say that? Renier Bilgano? Close enough?
Thank you, Madam President.
You.
The Honourable Josh Blino. For all those, I urge you to think about this. For all those who think that this is a brutal or cruel punishment, it is not. Firstly, it is for child protection, not prevention, because it protects children. Because if they're castrated, the chances are 3% that they will reoffend instead of 46%. Secondly, the average by the Mako Australian organisation that it runs.
I might just the honourable member over here actually didn't like being interjected on himself, so perhaps he might show a little latitude.
This institute collects statistics on child sex offenders, and they have come up with statistics that the average sex offender will sexually abuse 45 to 135 children. Now think about that. That's at least 45 children per sex offender that has their lives ruined, probably. The Mako Australian organisation that's at least 45 children that will have their lives permanently scarred. I urge you to go up to anyone that's been sexually offended. They will not be the same. Sorry? They can't. This castration will stop it. Rehabilitation obviously doesn't work. It's 46%. That's great. That's great for the population.
I believe the Honourable Member has the call at the moment.
Yeah. At least 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 7 boys will be sexually abused this year, according to this organisation. These numbers can be drastically reduced because if almost half of child sex offenders reoffend, And then obviously stopping them from doing that is child protection, since it protects those children.
I move the bill be read a second time. I give the call to the Honourable Lauren Goodhart.
President, Honourable Lauren Goodhart. This bill being passed is like going back to the Stone Ages. You know what? If I go and steal a TV, cut off my hands, or if I go and murder someone, why don't you just murder me? That's the way this bill's working. It's not gonna stop anything. It's still gonna happen, and after it happens, we're then doing it. It's supposed to be about protecting the children, not doing something once it's already happened. Invest in something else, try and figure out something else, but this is not protecting them. This is not protecting them. This is punishing them once they've already been affected.
I move that the bill be read a second time. I give the call to the Honourable Rachel Moles.
President, the Honourable Rachel Moles. Sex offender castration also has economic benefits for the community. Castration has 100% effectiveness in other countries, and if these results are repeated here in WA, then there is no chance of the released offenders reoffending, so there is no need to spend $50,000 a year on supervision of released sex offenders, which over the years will save millions of dollars.
Move the bill be read a second time. The Honourable Luke Ellery.
Madam President, I request the right to remain to be heard in silence. I'd like to point out that, first off, the opposition has gotten the wrong drug to start off with. I requested the right to remain in silence.
Members.
To be heard in silence. The wrong drug has been claimed by the opposition. We're using triptolin. Now, it is proven that jail is not enough. The fact that 50% of sex offenders, according to the Australian Bureau of Criminology and the Australian Bureau of Statistics, the 50% of child sex offences are reoffences. This means that jail is not enough. It does not address the problem. The root of the problem of child sex offence is because of the hormones produced that could be removed by castration. Triptolin. The drug triptolin is ready. It is in use in Europe, and the New England Journal of Medicine has found it to be 100% effective. The only side effect is fatigue, and I ask you, I would rather see 50% of children that could have been sexually molested saved for the one sex offender feeling tired. Think of the tiredness of the child's family as they sit because their child has been scarred because he has been molested by a sick person. The fact is, this drug only suppresses testosterone. It does not ruin their lives. It only suppresses the sex drive, the urge that criminals feel to molest the children of Western Australia.
Hey, member. I move the bill be read a second time. I give the call to the Honourable Ian Garlett.
Madam President, the Honourable Ian Garlett. I would just like to cover in more detail what the Honourable Member for East Metropolitan said earlier. The second paragraph of the memorandum implies there is a link in the disappearance of Daniel Morecambe and Douglas Jackway. His disappearance, although there is no obvious evidence. I believe that it's just there to spruce up the bill to make it look good. And this bill does not act as a preventative measure as such, as it takes effect after the crime. Yes, you may say it's a deterrent, but it won't ward off the most sickest of criminals. And also, many statistics from other countries are mentioned, but just because it works in, say, Germany doesn't mean it's going to work in Australia.
Order, members.
It doesn't mean it'll work to our best advantage. And the drug the government intends to use has only been used for 5 years, so it cannot be safely used when we, as of yet, are unaware of the long-term side effects.
I move the bill be read a second time. The Honourable Kate Novelli.
Thank you, Madam President. The Honourable Kate Novelli. Many of the opposition members today have pled the case for an offender who has been supposedly wrongly convicted and asked what is their fate under this bill. I answer you now. As any person who is familiar with the Western Australian judicial system will be aware, once a person who is convinced of their innocence will most likely plead not guilty. In doing so, if found guilty, the offender is able to lodge an appeal to dispute their alleged wrongful conviction. Such an appeal under the Western Australian Sentencing Act must be lodged within 21 days, clearly falling within the 3-month stay period as outlined in Part 2, Clause 4 and 5 of this bill. Should an appeal be lodged, this time is stayed, allowing for the claim to be heard and resolved.
Hear, hear.
Ensuring that no person who is found innocent will be negatively impacted by this bill.
Hear,
this
hear.
bill is not about crime prevention. The purpose is child protection.
Hear, hear.
I move the bill be read a second time. I give the call to the Honourable Michael Bovell.
Thank you, Madam President. The Honourable Michael Bovell. I also refer to question time this morning where the honourable member from the southwest could not guarantee that one person possibly may be wrongly convicted and surgically castrated.
Sorry. Yes, members, I was remiss there. I believe honourable members are just speaking one time each, so I thought I spotted you before. Would any further member wish to speak? I move the bill second time. I give the call to the Honourable Amy Leathersich.
Thank you, Madam President. The Honourable Amy Leathersich. Human rights groups say that castration is invasive, irreversible, mutilating and degrading. But sexually abusing a tiny, helpless, innocent child and the effects this has on them forever that they can never undo is also invasive, it's irreversible, it's mutilating and degrading. In 1985, US Supreme Court ruling said that involuntary surgical castration constituted cruel and unusual punishment. But it is dreadfully cruel and unusual what sex offenders do to children. David Fathy, head of Human Rights Watch's US program in Washington, says that Czech methods not only defy medical convention but also are an affront to civil liberties. He quoted, "Any irreversible punishment is a fundamentalist violation of human rights and any kind of mutilation is barbaric." But stop protecting the criminals. You're protecting them, but I know that by castrating them, we're not stopping all the children we can't undo the sex offenders. But the children who are abused by the second time round sex offenders, those cases might not happen if they were castrated. The purpose of the bill is child protection, not crime prevention, but this bill does both.
I move the bill be read a second time. The Honourable the Honourable Luke Kovac.
Thank you, Madam President. Honourable Luke Kovac. One large flaw with this bill that has not been mentioned is the fact this bill nowhere states that many, if not most, child offenders that go into court have committed more than one offence. Now, he's going in with 2 offences. Does he suddenly go immediately to surgical castration? It doesn't mention this. Yes, that's great, but if he commits 2 offences after the bill comes into effect and goes into court just once for 2 offences, which does he go up for, chemical or surgical?
Yeah.
I move the bill be read a second time. Further speakers. The Honourable Gemma Lee.
Thank you, Madam President. The Honourable Gemma Lee. Areas of castration where it has been successful include Norway, Iceland, Germany, Switzerland, Canada, Britain and many US states. I'd like to refer to a pedophile by the name of Joseph Frank Smith, and that he... sex offender then. He was an American convicted of multiple sex offences against children, and afterwards he became an advocate for chemical castration. He stopped having these injections and afterwards he began molesting young children again and was immediately returned to prison. The purpose of this bill is child protection, not crime prevention, but this bill does both.
Hear, hear.
I move the bill be read a second time. The Honourable Christine Hamilton Prime.
The Honourable Christine Hamilton Prime. Look, on that point, for members opposite, one thing can work for one person, but doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for the rest. And also, on the point of the whole bill, I think it's absolutely barbaric. It doesn't get to the real point of the issue. It doesn't get to the real point of the issue. But I'd like to, have a little phrase. Coke light. Well, this is like capital punishment light.
I move the bill be read a second time. The Honourable Sinead Newman.
Madam Speaker, the Honourable Sinead Newman. The government said in their memorandum that about 3% of those castrated won't reoffend, but then the Honourable Rachel Moles said before that 100% of people castrated won't reoffend. So.
Trip tolerant. We made that very clear.
Point of order.
Member has the floor.
Members, point of order.
Member has the floor.
Sorry, I thought she was actually sitting down, but do you have more that you'd like to say? Okay. I move the bill be read a second time. The Honourable Elizabeth Shannon.
Thank you, Madam President. The Honourable Liz Shannon. Despite the, notwithstanding the absolute barbarity in this proposed bill,
It doesn't stop this from being barbaric itself.
The bill does not sufficiently...
No, surgical castration.
The bill does not
It's
sufficiently...
not reversible.
Member has the floor.
Members. No, I've got your point. Please take your seat. Only one person can stand at a time. Out there, could you, particularly the member for Southwest, might just contain herself a little bit and allow the member for South Metropolitan to continue.
Thank you. As I was saying, notwithstanding the absolute barbarity of the bill, there is no provision made for miscarriage of justice. While supposedly chemical castration is reversible, we still do not know the long-term effects of the drugs. Additionally, with a second conviction, we still do not know whether the person will be found innocent afterwards, and this castration surgical castration cannot be undone.
Move the bill be read a second time. If there are no further speakers, members, do we have a committee stage? Is that where we go next? Yep. Okay. Right. So, members, we move into committee. At this point, how novel. That's not how we do it. Do we? Okay. Members, then I put that the bill be read a second time. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. I believe the ayes have it. So now we'll go to committee. Okay. Right. So we're now considering the short title of the bill. Any member wish to speak on the short title of the bill?
There's no amendment for this, so if you just
Okay. All right. If no member wishes to speak on that clause, then does any member wish to speak on the second clause? No. So we'll move to the third clause. Each clause as we go? Yep. Okay. Just 1 minute, sorry. I'm being corrected in my procedure, which is quite appropriate. So in terms of the first clause, which is the short title of the bill, all those in favour say aye. You wish to speak on the short title? Sorry. That's correct. No, you're
right. If it's possible, if I can just read it. We move to that the name of the short title of the bill is substituted from child protection. I think it's paedophile castration.
Would you like
bill.
to read from your
Yeah,
note? That's what you said, and then I'll take it back.
I move to substitute the word child sex offender for the word paedophile where it appears in the short title of the bill. So it would say child protection, child sex offender, castration bill 2009.
Would you like to speak to that amendment? That's fine.
The main reason why we the opposition decided to change this is that we've both agreed that there are definitions between an actual paedophile and child sex offender. Paedophile is confirmed in many medical journals as the fantasy of having sexual desires and fantasies and urges for children, while child sex offender is actually can be any person who physically sexually assaults a underage person.
Thank you. Any member wish to speak to that amendment? In which case, I would put that in the short title of the bill, this following words be deleted, that the word pedophile be deleted, and that the word child sex offender be inserted. The words child sex offender be inserted, so that the short title of the bill would now read: "This bill may be cited as the Child Protection, Child Sex Offender, Castration Bill 2009. All those in favour of that amendment, say aye. Aye. Those against? The amendment is carried. I now move that the short title of the bill as amended be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. The ayes have it. We move to clause 2, which is the commencement. This clause is that the bill commences on the day in which the Act receives the royal assent. All those in favour of clause 2, aye. Aye. Those against will say no. The ayes have it. We now move to clause 3 of the bill, which is the interpretation, and I give the call to the Honourable Elizabeth Shannon.
The Honourable Liz Shannon. I move to delete the words "it is non-permanent and can be reversed by stopping injections" so that the clause would read "chemical castration, a procedure that involves repeated monthly injections of hormones or drugs to suppress the production of the male hormones testosterone."
Thank you. Any member wish to speak to that amendment? Members, I would then put that this amendment be adopted. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? The amendment is carried. Are there any... Yes, well, I was going to say, are there any further... Yes, comments on clause 3? I give the call to... Where was my bit of paper? It went there. This one. The Honourable Mitchell Goff.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I move to delete the clause and substitute the clause with: in this bill, unless the contrary intention appears, child, anyone 15 years of age or younger; child sex offender, any person convicted in a WA court of child sex offences to anyone 15 years of age or younger under the Criminal Code; chemical castration, a procedure that involves repeated monthly injections of hormones or drugs to suppress the production of the person's hormones; and surgical castration, a 30-minute operation under anaesthetic to remove the testicles, ovaries which produce the hormones.
Yes, the Honourable... Bit of paper, sorry. No, I think the Honourable Luke Ellery stood first. You want... That's okay. All right, then we'll say the Honourable Tammy-Ann Corporal.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. There is no point in including person and including women and saying that we're going to take out the ovaries. There's no point in doing that, because taking out... Oh, it is a shame if you were to do that, because there's no point in taking out a woman's ovaries or a woman's womb, because neither of those things is where they get their sex drive from, and it will not stop women, the 1% of sex offenders who are women, from sexually offending. There's no point in doing it. Why would you remove them and spend that time and money of the nurses and stuff to remove things that are not going to stop child sex offences? It's ridiculous. Now, we've already told you our concrete sources this morning that say 96 to 99% of sex offenders are male. That's indisputable. Women who sexually offend against children are just as despicable as male sex offenders. But very unfortunately, as of yet, there is no way to stop women sex offenders from repeating their offence. We wish there was, we all wish there was, but there's not. But there is something in place right now across the world that has proven results in many countries that works to stop, not just reduce, it stops males from sexually reoffending against these little kids. We know that there is an indisputable, proven way to save children from being molested, to save 99% of children. Why would we just throw all that away because 1% are women? It is better to save 99% of children than none. That is how it is. If you could save 99% of children from having their innocence painfully stolen and their life
Remember, your time has elapsed.
ruined,
Thank you.
what would you choose?
We're speaking to this amendment. Are there any further speakers? Yes, the Honourable Georgia O'Keefe.
Sorry, I'd just like to ask the Honourable Tammy Ann Caldwell if she thinks it's fair that because we don't have a process for female castration at this time, is it fair that males have to go through the process of castration, have their testicles removed, and yet women only have to go to prison? How is that fair?
Honourable Tammy Ann Caldwell.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Honourable Member of the Opposition, is it fair that tiny babies and children get molested by these sex offenders? That is not fair, and therefore, since we wish there was a way to stop the women sex offenders, but there's not, and we know that there's a way to prevent 99% of those male sex offenders from reoffending against these little children, they never get life sentences in prison because they are always let out early on parole, and the reoffence... No, if they get put into prison, they will get let out early, as they often do, and they reoffend. This is the facts, okay? But if they get chemically castrated and it works as effectively as it has done elsewhere, 100% effective, they can be released into the community, and there will be no chance of them reoffending. This is a much better bill than putting them in. No. That was a 1989 study in Germany. The most recent one with a triptolin chemical has 100% effectiveness. We're not going to not supervise them straight away, but it works. And the ones that they had, the chemicals they had before works. They took it from over. They took.
Point of order? That's not a point of order in my books.
They took the rehabilitation rates of the other chemicals. Over here is where the important bits are going on, people. They took the reoffending rates from over 50%. You cannot say, let me speak. You cannot say we won't send people to jail if they're found guilty in a court just in case they're innocent. The same principle applies.
Yeah. Members, just before we proceed, I might just, for clarification, I understand that members are calling a point in terms of members being heard in silence. The way I interpret the flow of debate, if members are interjecting left, right and centre across, and everybody's doing it and nobody's getting upset about it, then that's okay. I think it's important that members get heard audibly, but if members don't want to be interjected upon, then do not interject yourself. I can guarantee you, I've been doing it for 12 years and I don't get interjected on. That's why. It takes a while to get used to it, but... Okay, any further... yes, the Honourable... How did it, Vlada?
Vlada, yeah.
Vlada. Let me.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. The issue here is a very simple one, and quite frankly, I don't see why there's such a fuss about it. All this opposition is recommending is that we put in the terms female and to include the ovaries. At the moment, yes, there is perhaps no medication for female castration, but that's why bills can be amended and you can include provisions for that. So what is the point? Madam Chairperson, I ask, what is the point of excluding an entire gender when it is documented that 5% actually commit these offences? There is absolutely no point Madam Chairperson, to exclude an entire gender from a bill, it is not only it goes against the Interpretation Act. It doesn't help. It really doesn't help anyone. If it's child protection, if we're talking about protecting children, don't you think that everyone should be covered?
So we're dealing with clause 3 as amended. Yes, the Honourable Luke Ellery.
Madam President, the Honourable Luke Ellery. It is important to realise that the actual title of this bill is, as it's now been changed, Child Sex Offender Castration Bill. Now, the importance of the castration is, unfortunately, it is gender specific. Now, that is a problem. There is no point in taking, in terms of ovaries, it does not help. Your side wishes to add to the clause that they will take out the womb and the ovaries of women sex offenders, but this will have no effect. There is no point. We can deal with what we have now. What we have now is a drug that is 100% effective. I am referring only to triptolin. Now, we can work with what this is. Now, the opposition has proposed that when we have the means of meeting these women sex offenders, we will amend this bill, and we will do so. But currently we do not have the means. We need to make the most of now with what resources we have available and stop children being molested now, as soon as possible.
We're dealing with an amendment to clause 3. Are there any further speakers? The Honourable Gemma Lee.
Thank you, Madam President, the Honourable Gemma Lee. I would like to point it out to the opposition that when you take a woman's ovaries out, she still wants to have sex. And there's no other way of stopping that woman wanting to commit these crimes. We've got a bill here that is going to prevent 99% of children from being molested. Well, it's not our... 99% is better than none, and unfortunately we can't help the other 1% at the moment. But in future, they can be helped.
Yes, members, we're dealing with an amendment to clause 3. The Honourable Lewis Richards.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. The Honourable Lewis Richards. I don't know where exactly you get this whole 99% of people of child protection. Now, I understand where you get it from, but work it out in your head. I'm pretty sure that if you research, and like I've researched myself, the Shadow Justice Minister thing. Pardon? Really? Really? Good. Wikipedia, everything. But no, seriously, back to my point. Back to my point, Madam Chairperson. Now, I think what the government are trying to say is that all cases of child sex offenders is sexual urges. Well, that's not the case. There are clinical proofs and evidence studies, especially by the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health in Toronto, which was in the Psychiatric Research Journal in 2007, says they're not all about sexual urges. Many of them about power. Many child sex offenders go, I can do this person because I'm bigger. I can do this. Having a sexual urge won't change that, because they'll move on to using things such as toys, such as other weapons. That the issue for many of them is power, not the sexual urge. Not of them get sexual gratification from it. It's the power. So how is castration? I'm going to do that. And also for the women, it's that might as well put it in now while we can, because I'm pretty sure that most bills, even though it's according to the Interpretation Act that he's can be to both genders, is that all bills recently, according to the Equal Opportunities Act, or one of the acts similar to that, says that all bills have to be gender neutral, even if it's rated to a male.
Members, we're dealing with the amendment. I give the call to the Honourable Michael Bovell.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. May I remind the Honourable Government that removing the testicles from a male's body does not in itself protect children.
Members, we're dealing with an amendment to clause 3. Are there any further speakers? If not, I want to deal with them all at once. I think normally we would deal with them word by word, but I think probably this afternoon I might put that the amendments as proposed by members on this side stand. All those in favour. Sorry. Okay, well this is clause 3 at the moment, so we just need to finish that. All members in favour of the amendments to clause 3 say aye. Aye. Those against will say no. No. Ooh. That's my bit. All right, we'll try that. I think the ayes have it.
Divisions are compulsory.
Divisions are compulsory?
Well, they can compel. No, they're not. Aren't they? Committee?
Thank you. All right, division called. Ring the bells is what we do. Say what? Ayes will move to the right of the chair, noes will move to the left of the chair. So if you're an aye, you're over there, and if you're a no, you're over there. That's okay. No, as long as it's not too chaotic for you. Yeah, we just got to deal with that first. Now,
Christine, don't do that. Don't enforce party discipline. No, you can't do it. You can't do it. Are we chatting to Adam about it? Don't do it, okay?
Were these ones off the cuff or were they?
These ones are all written, so I'm pretty sure they're all with notice.
Okay, right.
They were all given notice. Knowing how many amendments there is, I don't think there's going to be any supplementary ones.
Okay. All right. This is an interesting division. How long are we ringing for?
The ayes have it.
How long do you want to ring for? Another 90 seconds? Yeah. Okay, members. We're dealing with an amendment to clause 3, which I haven't got in front of me, so I can't read out, which is what I would normally do. But I will repeat that all members voting aye will move to the right of the chair, all members voting no will move to the left of the chair. Looking at the numbers, I'd say it's an aye. So that means that... Let me just count, hang on a second. Is there anybody hiding? Yes, well, okay, we'll do this. Well, in the case that there are no people clearly on the nose, I don't even think we need a teller at this point, but I've never seen a division like that, so that's okay. Members, the amendments will stand. Please resume your seats. You don't want to do a count on that, do you? Doesn't seem a lot of point when there's that.
Yeah, okay, we'll just...
I think it's mine.
I have to be vigilant about it. Like, Christine, if they do it, I'd say exactly the same thing.
Members, could you please resume your seats?
Yeah. Sure.
Thank you. Members, we're now dealing with clause 3 as amended. All those in favour of clause 3 will say aye. All those against will say no. I believe the ayes have it. We now move to clause 4, and clause 4, I believe there's an amendment from the Honourable George O'Keefe.
George O'Keefe. I move to delete the clause and substitute the clause with chemical castration. A child sex offender is to be chemically castrated 3 months from the date of the start of their jail sentence for their first conviction of a child sex offence or offences. If within those 3 months the conviction goes unchallenged and an appeal is not entered into at the discretion of the judicial system. If the conviction of child sex offence or offences is challenged and an appeal is entered into, chemical castration will only begin if the child sex offender is again found guilty and convicted of a child sex offence or offences, and chemical castration will be carried out 1 month from the start of the child sex offender's jail sentence for their first conviction of a child sex offence or offences at the discretion of the judicial system. If a child sex offender is later found not guilty of the charge of the child sex offence or offences under the criminal code for which they were chemically castrated, their monthly chemical castration injections will be stopped. The monthly chemical castration injection will be carried out by prison health officers with the aid of prison guards if needed while the child sex offender is in jail. If and when the sex offender is released from jail, they must attend a public hospital on a specified date each month to continue to receive the monthly chemical castration injection. If a child sex offender once released from jail cannot attend one of their appointments for their monthly chemical castration injections, they must give notice of at least 24 hours to the hospital and reschedule another appointment within 3 days of their original appointment, which they must then attend, otherwise they will be sentenced to a further jail term, effective immediately, for a length of time to be determined by the presiding judge or magistrate. If a child sex offender once released from jail fails to attend one of their monthly chemical castration injection appointments each month without giving notice, they will be sentenced to a further jail term, effective immediately, for a length of time to be determined by the presiding judge or magistrate.
Thank you. Members, we're dealing with an amendment to Clause 4. The Honourable Tammy-Ann.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. The Honourable Tammy-Ann Caldwell. Okay, 30% of sex offenders found guilty never see jail and just get fully suspended sentences. 30% of sex offenders found guilty never see jail. 70% of sex offenders found guilty do go to jail, but they often get out early on parole, and many, as we've established, re-offend. The judges are obviously not in the real world and obviously have never had a child of their own sexually offended, and do not hand out sentences that protect children, so we need to make it mandatory. If the offender, in the bill, it says, is under 26 and the victim is 12 to 15, then they will only be castrated at the discretion of the judge, only. But if the age gap is less than 5 years, they cannot be castrated whatsoever. I will read you what I've read you this morning. William Thomas Clare was jailed for sex offences. Then he was released. This is serious. And he raped and killed a 3-year-old boy after he was released and filmed himself raping the boy's 6-year-old sister. This is real. It might not have happened to any of you, but it happened to lots of people, and it is not fair. They do not deserve this. Then in 2008, these judges made his non-parole period cut by 3 years. This is why it needs to be mandatory, so something is actually done. Otherwise, they will not do it.
Members, we're dealing with Clause 4. Any further speakers? The Honourable Dylan Capone.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. At the discretion of the judicial system, I have never seen a more human rights activist load of rubbish in my life. This gives the power back to the pedophile, the sex offender. These people are being given leniency in the judicial system. You know it, and you shouldn't have added it.
Members, we're dealing with Clause 4. Yes, the Honourable Vlada. I'm going to have trouble with your name all afternoon.
Thank you,
have
Madam
the call.
Chairperson. The Honourable Vlada Lemake. Madam Chairperson, there's something called the UN Declaration of Human Rights. It outlines the rights that people have. It outlines rights that people have. Chemical castration invades it invades a person's body without their consent. This is against their right. There is no justification. This is the government has proposed an eye for an eye. Has proposed an eye for an eye bill that has absolutely no consideration of the circumstances at hand. The general statistics that they might be released, it was 30 or 70%, or what the honourable member opposites have proposed. It doesn't. We have no idea what the circumstances of each case was. The honourable member opposite has given us these atypical cases. They're atypical for a reason, because they're really the worst of the worst. The opposition is not in any way, shape or form condoning the actions of these criminals, but we are suggesting that we are proposing that mandatory sentencing is not the way to go about incarcerating and punishing the people who do such horrendous crimes.
I give the call to the Honourable Luke Ellery.
Yeah, Madam President, the Honourable Luke Ellery. One of the points that we actually included, I believe, in a clause was the right for appeal. Now, we are considering the pedophiles' rights in this case, that they do have the right to appeal. Now, if they truly believe they are an exception to this mandatory castration, if they believe they are an exception to this chemical castration, then they have right to an appeal, and they as a separate case, can prove to the judge why they do not deserve this chemical castration. We would also... There's a difference between whether they're guilty and whether they can be guilty and not be castrated if they appeal. Now, the fact is...
3 months before you're castrated after the sentence. Yes, you can, because before...
Well, order members, interesting as this is, I think the Honourable Luke Ellery has the call.
Thank you. I'd also like to point out that for the first-time offenders, they are only subject to chemical castration. So it is not like this is irreversible. This can easily and very simply be reversed by simply stopping the injections. It is only the case where they have undoubtedly been convicted twice of sexually offending a child. And that is when we have pulled them into order, that we will not stand for people who re-offend, who continue to molest the children of Western Australia.
Thank you, members. We're dealing with clause 4. The Honourable Dylan Capone.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I'd like to quote the Shadow Minister for Police, Justice and Corrective Services when he said that the UN considers chemical castration invading the body without consent. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that what a child sex offender does?
Members, just in light of the time, I will give you the call. We're going to limit to 2 more speakers and then we'll put this to the vote, so that we can get through the rest of the amendments that we're dealing with. I'll give the call to the Honourable Georgia O'Keefe.
I just briefly wanted to ask, so the government is suggesting that because a criminal has committed, it is a despicable crime, but that doesn't mean that they should be forfeited of their basic human rights. Everyone has a right to these. They are taking away the rights, but they still get their human rights. Part of this amendment is to make the bill gender neutral. That is, it's throughout the thing to make sure that it is gender neutral, which we have already passed. But the discretion of the judicial system is really important, because just because someone has committed a sexual offence doesn't mean that it's out of a sexual urge, which is a paedophile. But a paedophile and a child sex offender are different things. And so castration won't actually help if it hasn't been for a sexual urge, and it is just a waste of money.
I believe the Honourable Tammy-Ann Caldwell had the call.
Madam Chairperson, the Honourable Tammy-Ann Caldwell. You were talking about the UN human rights, but as the my honourable member said, there is also human rights for the child, and these are the things that are violated when a sex offender, sexually assaults them. No, but it makes it right to protect them from having their rights taken away. And while we're on this topic, I will remind you that Canada, many US states and Britain and Norway, Iceland and Switzerland, which are members of the United Nations, all have it. All have chemical castration. Some have surgical, some had surgical. Okay? Second of all, I know chemical castration and surgical castration, you're saying, it shouldn't be given as a punishment sort of thing, but we're not saying that as a punishment. It is a protection to protect children. It does. You keep saying sometimes it's in the mind, but the fact is, it is biological because it has had 100% effectiveness. It has had 100% effectiveness.
Members, thank you, members. Members, in light of the time, I need to put this particular amendment. So we're dealing with an amendment to clause 4. So I put that the amendment be supported. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. No. I think the noes have it. Divide, is that a division you're calling for? Division call for, ring the bells. I can ring the bells, I've never done that before.
I get confused when speakers do that, they don't realise they want people to stand up.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, it's pretty complicated. It took me about 2 years to figure it out. Not sure that I've got it all figured out yet.
Ben Wyatt did it in the Assembly. And
how did he go?
He did well too. He's been here a couple of years, but he did it and they were all confused because there was no noise whatsoever.
Oh, it's interesting. It all depends because We don't all get to do this. I never do this.
Oh, really?
No. Because I'm always doing stuff out there. So, but no, I only know it because I know listening to it. Enough. Right, members. All those in favour of the amendment, the ayes will move to the right of the chair, the noes will move to the left of the chair. Do we have a teller for the opposition whips? Will be the teller. So we have some tellers? Okay, right. Please come forward. We'll do a little counting here.
No, 7.
7 over here. Members, the result of the division is that the ayes have 13 and the noes have 7, and therefore the amendment will stand. Members, could please get your seats. Okay. Oh, you're very efficient.
I can't see that.
Beautiful, look at that. Thank you, members. We're now dealing with Clause 4 as amended. So I put to you that Clause 4 as amended be supported. All those in favour say aye. And those against say no. Clause 4 is passed. We now move to Clause 5 and I call on a move of amendment. You have the call. Member for East Metro, how's that?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. The Honourable Vlad Lemaik. I move to delete the clause 5, and substitute the clause with 5. Surgical castration. A child sex offender is to be surgically castrated 3 months from the date of the start of their jail sentence for their second conviction of a child sex offence or child sex offences if within those 3 months the conviction goes unchallenged and appeal is not entered into at the discretion of the judicial system. Part B. If the second conviction of a child sex offence or a child sex offences is challenged and an appeal is entered into, surgical castration will only be performed if the child sex offender is again found guilty and convicted of a child sex offence, and surgical castration will be performed 1 month after the start of the child sex offender's jail sentence for their second conviction of a child sex offence at the discretion of the judicial system. Part C. If a child sex offender is convicted a third time after they have been surgically castrated, they will be sentenced at the discretion of the judicial system.
Thank you. So we're dealing with an amendment to Clause 5. Are there any speakers? The Honourable Tammy Ann Caldwell.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. The Honourable Tammy Ann Caldwell. I move that since we've just had this exact same debate to do with the same added-in clause, that we just go straight to the next part of this debate.
We just go to the vote.
Yes.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, that this amendment be supported because the previous one was?
Vote over this amendment.
On the amendment?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Members are happy with that? You would like to? Yes, of course. The Honourable Lewis Richards seeks the call.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. The Honourable Lewis Richards. Now, judicial discretion is the key for any civilised country. It is the cornerstone of why we have an independent system to determine what the punishment. Now, personal opinions might differ from either if someone thinks it's not strong enough and some people think it's strong enough. I personally think that mandatory sentencing is too strong, but there we go. People can make their own decisions, and there we go. Now, a close relative of mine was sexually abused as a child, and this is no story, this is true. He's in his 70s. He's been psychiatrically affected. He doesn't like the certain institution the person's from. He cringes every time he sees some case list on TV. However, when I asked him, when I talked to him about this bill, that if he could turn back the clock and have a decision about where he wanted him surgically castrated, he said no, because we in a civilised society should not steep to the level of the person of the offender. And it should be the choice of the people who make these decisions to decide if it's needed or not.
Members, I'm just aware that we might in the fullness of, like in light of the fact that we're running out of time, take up the previous suggestion that we simply move to a vote on this, and then because we have 4 further amendments to deal with before 5 o'clock. So, members, we're dealing with an amendment to Clause 5. The question is that the amendment be agreed to. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Okay. I believe the ayes have it.
Can I please confer with my leader?
Okay. In which case, it's lucky it's not sheep stations today. In which case, the amendment stands. I now put that the clause as amended be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. Clause 5 is agreed to. We now move to Clause 6, and we've got another amendment on Clause 4.
Are you still doing that? You're still doing that?
Oh, right. In which case, we'll just have to rescind that little vote and say, are there any further amendments to Clause 5? Yes. The Honourable Christine Hamilton Prime. Okay. Members, the normal procedure with if one is seeking to completely delete the clause is when the question is put, you say no, because that it has the same effect. If you follow me, you can argue why the clause should not stand at all, if you wish. So that's how you would deal. We would deal with a proposition that the clause not be supported at all. Simply, when I put that question, you would say no, but you're at liberty to speak to that proposition. No, that's all right. Are there any further amendments then to Clause 5? No? No? Okay. Now is the point at which I'm going to put that Clause 5 as amended be agreed to. All right, are you right? We're on track? I missed something?
Lauren, do you have one or not? The 5A thing?
It's been deleted though, so.
That's okay. It's not too late. We haven't done it yet. So, a further amendment to Clause 5, the Honourable Lauren Goodhart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Honourable Lauren Goodhart. I move to insert the clause 5A, so it would read 5A, voluntary castration. A child sex offender may voluntarily request that they be castrated chemically or surgically to the Prison Health Authority, granting that the request will be subject to the psychiatric evaluation.
Thank you. The Honourable Luke Ellery. Any members wish to speak to that amendment? If not, I'll put that the amendment be agreed to. Those of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. The ayes have it, so the amendment will stand. So, are there any further amendments to Clause 5? Okay. Now it might be the moment. So now I put that Clause 5 as amended be agreed to. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. I know it's very confusing. I do this all the time, so. Okay. The moment the ayes have it, I have had no call for the noes. Okay. Okay, that's fine. I'm normally just go bang, that's it, right. So the ayes have it, and the clause as amended stands. We're now dealing with Clause 6. Does any member wish... Clause 6 has been deleted? The amendment has... Okay, the amendment has been withdrawn or deleted? Okay. Oh, hang on a sec. Wait for it. I know we're getting pretty keen. It's nearly 5 o'clock.
6 and 7 at the same time.
Oh, that's a bit cheeky. I might do them all the time. So, members, given that there is no amendments on the notice paper to Clause 6, I put that Clause 6 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. We're now dealing with Clause 7. Any members wish to speak or amend Clause 7? Yes, the Honourable Dylan Capone.
Move that clause 7 and 8 be voted on together.
Right.
We have here there's an amendment to clause 8, is that right?
No.
I'll just check. If you
We
could just
got
take
it- we
a
agreed to it.
seat 1 sec. Do any members have amendments to either clause 7 or clause 8? Okay. In which case, yeah, that's okay. In which case, I'll put clause 7 first. Members, I move that. The question is that clause 7 be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. Clause 7 is, the ayes have it. We now move to clause 8. Does any member wish to speak to clause 8? The Honourable Sinead Newman.
Madam Chairperson, the Honourable Sinead Newman. I move to delete the clause and substitute the clause with, in addition to Part 2, 4A, B, C, D, E, 5A, B, 6A, B, D, and 7A, psychological intervention, counselling and rehabilitation procedures will be carried out as they currently are. B. Research will be undertaken by the WA Prison Rehabilitation Board as to how the Czech Republic's rehabilitation procedures occur, and the West Australian prison counsellors will incorporate some of these methods into the West Australian sex offender rehabilitation procedures.
Thank you. Does any member wish to speak to the amendment? No member is indicating they're seeking the call. So, members, I put it that I'll move. Get the words right. The question is that the amendment be agreed to. All those in favour will say aye. Aye. All those against will say no. I believe the ayes have it. So now the question is that clause 8 as amended be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against say no. The ayes have it. Members, that being the last clause of the bill, we now go to question is, do we have to do this one? Yeah, yeah. The question is that this shall be the title of the bill, and might just read that out because it's been amended. If I can find it. So it's this be the title of the bill: Child Protection, Sex Offender Castration Bill 2009. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. All those against say no. The ayes have it. Now, I call the Honourable Tammy Ann Caldwell.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. The Honourable Tammy Ann Caldwell. Okay, with the amendments that we've now put through, this bill is now gender neutral, and surgical castration, which is the only permanent non-reversible sort of castration, will now only be carried out at the discretion of the presiding judge. No?
Yes, okay, sorry, member, I'm just checking procedurally. When you stand at this point, it's simply to report that, or to ask, let me get exactly the correct words, move that the chairman report the bill to the House. And that, just for people's information, that's what the mechanism is to move out of the committee back into the whole House. So it's a procedural motion, and as you are the mover of the bill, you you put that motion, and I'm sure everybody will agree, and then you get the next bit. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I would move that we now
Report the bill to the House?
Report the bill to the House, and
that's it? That's plenty. That's great. Wonderful. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against say no. Okay, so we just get up and swap chairs. Just for your information, it's not usually exactly the same person who does that. The chairman would come and present it to me, but that's okay. That's pretty good. So now the just following these instructions. I call the Honourable Tammy Ann Caldwell for the third reading.
Thank you, Madam President. The Honourable Tamianne Caldwell. And now I can speak. Okay. Right, so what I was saying before, now that we have amended the bill, it is gender neutral. Both will be castrated. In the future, perhaps the removal of the ovaries in conjunction with other methods will prevent women sex offenders. It's now gender neutral. Surgical castration now, which is the permanent non-reversible method, will only be carried out at the discretion of the presiding judge, giving the decisions back to the judges. We have quoted the Australian Bureau of Statistics Sexual Assault Statistical Overview 2004, the Australian Institute of Criminology, the Australian Prisoners Statistics data, medical journals and many studies. And all of them have the same information in them. They all back up the fact that castration works, the fact that 99% of sex offenders are male, the fact that almost 50% of sex offences are carried out on children under the age of 14. The statistics and the studies show that castration works very well. And they also show that upon release, the child sex offenders will often re-offend, which is putting more and more children in danger, and they're having their lives emotionally and mentally and socially ruined and shattered forever at such a young age that they should never have to put up with that. They're still young, innocent children, sometimes babies. And I think what we need to remember is we're not just talking about statistics and words here, like babies, children, sexual offence, penetration. These are real kids, and if it was one of us or one of our family members who had it happen, I'm sure we would want something to be put in place that was easily reversible, that has been proven to work in countries across the world for over 50 years to protect children so that this doesn't happen to any more children. This bill is a welfare-based bill. It's a child protection bill. It gives rights to the victims of pedophilia, and it also works better than any rehabilitation or imprisonment to date, so that the sex offenders can then be released back into the community. Rather than staying in jail, they can be released back with no chance of reoffending.
Time's expired. Thank you. I have another speaker on the other side. The Honourable Georgia O'Keefe.
Thank you, Madam President. The Honourable Georgia O'Keefe. Although our amendments have been agreed to, we as the opposition still cannot agree to this bill. Paedophilia and child sex offences are horrific acts. The opposition agrees completely on this. However, on such a complicated and controversial issue, a lot more thought needs to go into legislating for it so that the issue is correctly addressed. As previously stated, this bill is simply populist, which is not surprising for such an emotional issue. To properly deal with this, we cannot be emotional, however. We have to look at it morally as well as practically. Morally, yes, young children are being violated, and this is so wrong. But whether we like it or not, everyone has rights, including paedophiles and child sex offenders. Ethically, it is not right to put chemical castration upon a child sex offender after the first offence, and it is certainly not ethical to even include surgical castration upon merely a second-time offender, and it is in fact barbaric. The chemical castration drug, not even mentioned in the bill, and no one, not even a sex offender, should have to be a guinea pig for a drug that has only been around for 5 years, and we don't know what the long-term effects are yet. Especially considering only a small amount of child sex offences are committed due to sexual urges. As a result, only a small number of offenders will be fixed by the drug. The only way to really solve this problem is through prevention with education and perhaps voluntary castration for those mentally sound who want it and feel that they truly need it. Castration is not the answer.
Sorry, the member will cease to interject. You've had a good crack at it. The Honourable George O'Keefe, please continue. You're finished. Oh, perfect timing. Okay. So I believe the Honourable Tamianne Caldwell is to move the...
The Honourable Tamianne Caldwell will now move that the bill be read a third time.
Thank you. The question is that the West Australian YMCA Legislative Council agrees that the bill be now read a third time. All those of that opinion... Are we having a division straight away, or am I reading this wrong? Well, division straight away? Okay, right. All of those of that opinion shall pass to the right of the chair and those against to the left of the chair, and I'll call for the bells to be rung. Yeah, that's what it says here. I'm following the instructions. So normally we would say ayes and noes, but we're just going straight to a division. So all those who are supporting the bill as amended will move to the right of the chair. All those against will stay to the left. Yep. Thank you. Lock the doors. You usually hear a sharp clunk of the keys at this point. The question is that the bill be read a third time. I appoint as teller for the ayes the Honourable Joshua Renier, and the teller for the noes is the Honourable Lauren Goodhart. If you could just come forward and count. Eight. Okay. The result of the division is ayes 8 and noes 12. A majority of 4 to the noes. Therefore, the motion is resolved in the negative. I don't think anybody shifted their seats, so you don't need to resume them. So, members, the noes have it, and the bill will not be read a third time. So, where do we go next, gang? We've got any other business before we finish? We've got any other business before we finish? Okay. Thank you very much for joining us in Parliament. I hope I've done an adequate job. I think we've finished the business for the afternoon. I hope you enjoy your evening and have enjoyed your time debating here. I think, by and large, it's been a hearty debate and a difficult topic to debate, I must say. So I appreciate that people put a lot of work into researching that and to putting your points of view. So congratulations and thanks again.
Guys, there's a fair bit of time, so you might want to move into the assembly if you wanted to watch the debate that's happening in there. My apologies.